accordance with the open meeting law, the board states for the record that this meeting is being recorded by NORCAM and may be recorded by other local media. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. So, as most of you probably recall, this meeting is kind of like an off meeting for the board. This is like the third meeting for the month, specifically designed to have the warrant hearing on warrant articles for the October 6th town meeting. Tonight, there are a couple of other items that need to be addressed on a timely basis, which is the only reason they're on the agenda. One is the open space and recreation plan, a 10-year plan that has to be submitted by tomorrow. So the board just needs to...
Can you speak? We can't hear a word you're saying.
So the, again, just a couple of items on the agenda that we have timing issue that need to be addressed, and then we'll get into the public hearing on the warrant articles right after those. So, open space and recreation plan, review 10-year action plan update and progress report. Mr. Gilberto, and then our town planner.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman, so I'm going to share the screen through Zoom. There are just a few slides that will summarize what is going on with regard to this. And again, this is something that was time sensitive. Planning Commission had conducted an initial review and heard from the planner. They had asked for some time to review and provide some more feedback. They did do so and then provided that feedback the day after our last meeting. So we're here this evening asking for the board to just receive this review. There's no vote that's required with regard to this. There's no approval that's required, but we did feel it was important where the initial open space and recreation plan was approved by town meeting and I believe funded by town meeting. I remember that? Was
Not approved by town meeting.
Sorry.
Just by the committee.
The authorization was funded at town meeting. We just want folks to know this is happening. We aren't going to go through a ton of detail, just sort of given the high level points, and I've shared the slides that are up there, but I will turn it over to the town planner.
Thank you. So our open space and recreation plan that we have currently was completed in 2020. At that time, those plans were good for 7 years. They're now good for 10 years. So the state has offered the opportunity for communities that have the 7-year plans to extend our time that the plan remains valid, and that is something that enables us for to receive certain state funds relating to open spaces, recreation, and conservation. The requirement for this is only that we provide status updates for each of the action items that were already on the plan. It's not an intent for introducing any new substantive changes. These are status updates only, and an overall extension of the time frames estimated for the completion of certain activities to just reflect a 10-year plan.
And board members were provided with the plan.
Yes.
In your packets.
That's correct. And we weren't given a lot of time to pull together the update, but we did send out to each of the departments and boards who were involved in each of the action items the opportunity to comment, to give us an update. So that took some time to collect, and then the Planning Commission wanted a couple of weeks to just give it a review, and changes they made to it were very, very minor. These are really just the status updates, mostly from Parks and Recreation. So as I mentioned, this update would allow an extension of 3 years through April of 2030. Currently, it would be expiring in April of 2027. So if we don't take advantage of our extension opportunity, then we would be looking to fund a new plan update. In the coming year, we'd be looking for funding to begin the process next year. The division of, I'm sorry, go ahead. No, that's fine. So this is the 10-year action plan revision statement that would be submitted with those status updates, just as that this updates our action plan that was previously established from our committee in 2020, that it was just an extension of 7 to 10 years, updated, consistent with the updated requirements of the Mass Division of Conservation Services, does not make substantive changes to the original vision, goals, or objectives in that plan. It just extends the time frame and provides updates for completing outstanding action items. And then the action items that you were provided, there are 64 of them in that list. Five of them, or 8%, have been completed. 43 are ongoing, that's 67%. And some of these are activities that will never have a completion date because they're just ongoing every year. It's something that we do all the time. The remaining 16 items, or 25%, there's either no status update available at this time or no further activities planned. And all of this would be revisited at our next full plan update, which, if we're granted an extension, would be 3 years from now. And that's all. If there are any
And
questions.
there's nothing that precludes us from looking at it periodically anyway.
We should be looking at it periodically, and I believe the Parks and Recreation Department does review it frequently, at least annually, and they're constantly working on the items. So, for example, Kids Spot is one of the action items. We've marked that as completed. And items can be added at every, 10-year plan update, but that doesn't stop the town from doing those things. It's helpful if we're applying for a grant to have it noted in a plan that we would like to do it. It can be very helpful when we're seeking funding, but this isn't a binding plan. It's a plan. It's not necessarily a list of commitments, or there's nothing to preclude us from doing other activities outside of this plan if we know the need arises.
Any questions from board members? All right, hearing none. Mission accomplished?
Yes, thank you.
Mission
No votes
accomplished.
required, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle.
You're welcome. Save some money.
All right. Review fiscal year 2025 closeout. And again, board members and for the public, we felt this was important just for an update now before we have the public hearings on the warrant articles, just to get a status as to where we're at and what the Department of Revenue has told us and informed us. And then,
I'll take it.
Okay.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I did put a document in the meeting packet. It was just a spreadsheet that was intended to summarize how we arrived at our certified free cash number for the period ending June 30th of 2025. I'm going to share this document here. I'm going to encourage the finance director to jump in or correct me if I misstate anything. And to be clear, this is, in fact, a summary. It's a summary, and it's intended to just give folks a general idea of what's going on with regard to the town's finances. The things I want to focus on are, here we go, sorry about that. Our certified free cash number for the period in question, the end of the last fiscal year, $9,207,437. That number is a larger number than what we have seen over the past few years, and we just put a 3-year average in there on the right-hand side. The first thing that I will point out is actually just about the middle of the page under the fiscal year 2025 column, which is $3,540,208 in certified free cash that actually reflects American Rescue Plan Act funding that we received from the federal government. So that's noted there. I'll also just note that there are some highlighted areas up above that I think are important for us to be mindful of as we're making decisions with regard to the budget. And it will be particularly important when we're looking at the status of the budget for fiscal year 2027, the next fiscal year. You see that in the line for interest in excess of our projections, the interest, which is an income stream, some of which is derived from the investment of funds from the sale of town-owned land. We had $1.7 million in fiscal year 2024. That was in excess of what we projected. That number dropped by $300,000 when you look at fiscal year 2025. So that is a direct reduction in what we see for free cash. Departmental turnbacks, you see a significant drop in that, and we've talked about this in the budget process over the past few years. It was approaching $2.2 million in fiscal year 23 and 24. In fiscal year 25, the number dropped to $1.5 million roughly. So that trend that we were looking at is in fact, and that we were expecting to happen as things got tighter with the budget, is in fact materializing here. And then I'll just note an area where we have often generated some free cash is in health insurance, which is now budgeted more closely with what our anticipated expenses are, not including in there the funding that goes for the set aside for the PFA. We don't have a number in there yet. I think we had a projection, Lorianne. We were at 175,000. Was that what we were looking at? I remember that from last year.
It was 135 last year. I anticipate 150 this year, but we have to wait for the closeout through September. They can run out through September, whereas I'm in like through June. Those are the only figures that I have, so it could be less.
Sure. So, that's an area where things are also getting tighter. So, and then if we just look down the very bottom, you see the total recurring number was $4.5 million for fiscal year '24. That number's dropped to $4.255 million for fiscal year '25, and there is no reason to think that it won't be even tighter when we close out fiscal year 2026, roughly a year from now. So we just felt it was important to put this information up. We talk a lot about free cash and what it is and how we use it. The funding source is generally utilized. First and foremost, we use it to stabilize our debt service costs on an annual basis in the budget process. It's roughly $1.2-ish million and increasing, so that free cash is important. Otherwise, we need to amend the budget, probably in the form of reductions, in order to get it balanced. So at some point, we can go through this in further detail if it proves to be necessary, but we felt it was an important lead-in to the town meeting discussion, financial actions that we're going to be taking, and also the next agenda item with regard to municipal positions.
Board members, any question on this information? Mr. Waller?
Turnbacks just money unspent from the prior year? Is that what that means?
Departmental appropriations that were not spent.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
But again, and Laurie, maybe you can help us, but if you're looking at it from year to year, I mean, there's actually, other than the ARPA funds, which were converted into free cash here, that's one-time funds. Again, lower interest rates, less money turned back, tighter budgets. I mean, we're actually down almost $2 million, really, from last year to this year, if not for the infusion of these other one-time funds.
Right.
So it's important for people to recognize that your recurring funds, as pointed out down below, are diminishing as the budgets get tighter and as interest rates drop. So available cash for doing things on a recurring basis, not one-time monies, is significantly tightening up for us. Very good. Mr. Gilberto, next item. Everybody else said, board members? Okay. Mr. Gilberto.
There's a question here. Is there a typo or a public comment? We usually have
There's,
public
no,
comment?
and again, this is not a normal board meeting. This is a meeting specifically for warrant articles, hearing warrant articles. So again, public has more than ample opportunities to weigh in on any issues that's coming before town meeting.
Yeah, I
So it's
guess-
not, so no, this is
I
not
guess
a,
I'd like to, okay. I'd like to-
excuse me, no, but we'll move on to the agenda. Thank you, Rita.
You can, but after that, I'd like to do public comment.
There is no public comment
But there
on the
could,
agenda for
you
this
can
evening.
allow, you can allow it on it.
And we're
For
not.
anybody who
That's not what
wants-
it was. This was announced last month. This is what the purpose of this meeting was, specifically for warrant article hearings. So
Well,
that's what this evening is for, right? So, again, Mr. Gilberto, next
after
item on the
that, I'd
agenda.
like to stand up again and ask for public comment. I believe I have the right to do it as a citizen. Thank you.
And again, Mr. Gilberto.
Mr. Chairman, through you, the next agenda item with regard to reviewing and discussing vacant municipal positions. And I bring this up because we're about a quarter of the way into the fiscal year, and we have some positions that have come up as vacant. As we forecast what we will be dealing with for fiscal year 2027, we anticipate that there will need to be discussion with regard to our ability to fund all of the positions that were approved in the fiscal year 2026 budget. So we thought it would be appropriate to at least have a discussion and show what has come up as vacant or what is vacant right now, and just discuss our plans moving forward with regard to these positions. I'm going to try to zoom this in, but for the purposes of anybody who can't quite see. The first two positions are DPW positions that are authorized for fiscal year 2026. We do, they're in DPW, Special Heavy Equipment Operator, and the GIS Manager position. We do intend to proceed with filling both of those positions out of need for the department, both in the field and here in the town hall. For Elder Services, we have a vacancy in the position of Administrative Assistant. We've gone through an interview process, we have candidates for the position, and it is our recommendation to fill that position as well, based upon the need in the department, for what is a very busy department. The Assistant Finance Director position, we had been looking to fill that as of January 1st. However, we had an unanticipated resignation in the position of Accounting Analyst, and are therefore recommending to fill the Assistant Finance Director position first and hold off on filling the Accounting Analyst position at least until later in the fiscal year, if at all, depending upon how things go. It's likely that we will be here with that position vacant as we're talking about the fiscal year 27 budget process. As we talked about, there is a retirement that goes into effect tomorrow for the position of Deputy Fire Chief, and we are going through the civil service process to promote into that position. We currently have 5 firefighter positions. They are new positions that were funded in the fiscal year 24 and 25 budgets. Did I get that right? 24 and 25? 25 or 26? 25 and 26, yes. So, based upon our discussions, we intend to proceed with filling those positions as well. The library page position, it is a part-time position, however, it is a salary that is a component of MAR requirement that we have with regard to fulfilling our obligations to the state to qualify for state aid, so it would be our intention, based upon what the salary is budgeted at, to fill the position on a part-time basis. Police crossing guard position, we had an unanticipated vacancy right before the school year began. That number, $38,400, that's for all of the crossing guards, it's not for one position, so we are intending to fill that position as well and have it advertised. And then finally, the Youth Services Director, and I flagged this in yellow as more of something that I felt we ought to have a discussion about. By no means am I anticipating there would be any sort of final conclusion here, and I understand that there's a meeting of the Youth Services Committee, I believe, next week, and they may want some opportunity to weigh in as well. But I am concerned with regard to that position because of the challenges that we have, and it was something that was itemized, for potential reduction when we were talking about the fiscal year 26 budget process. So certainly any decisions we make are not final, and I don't want to give the community the impression that we are limited in our discussion to positions that are vacant, because in fact we may not be able to be when we get to the budget process next year. But I do want folks to know that we are struggling at the moment with regard with how to best proceed with filling that position. I believe Ms. Moore and the committee meets next week. It'd be great to have some feedback from them if they're willing to share it. I did talk briefly with the chairman this morning, and I certainly want to respect that process. But would suggest that we'll hold on any final decision one way or the other until we hear more from them. But I do feel it's important to bring this up because I think we are, as I've said for multiple years now, we're heading into yet another challenging budget discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Gilberto. Mr. Massey.
Mr. Chairman, through you, been trying to save pennies to turn into dimes, save dimes to turn into quarters. This is one that I think crossed my mind when I was running for this position, is this crossing guard. And love the police, support the police entirely, but we're paying a police officer as a crossing guard. Other communities have volunteers that have done that position. Is there any thought from my board or this administration that would be able to mitigate this issue, or thoughts of a volunteer?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So I believe the instances where a police officer is actually serving as a crossing guard are limited to substitutes when we may have an unexpected absence, like one day somebody's sick. We have crossing guards who are paid at a crossing guard rate that are working at the areas that have been determined to have a public safety need. We have a former reserve police officer who is assisting us. He also happens to be the animal control officer, so wears many hats for us. Thank you, Jerry. So he's filling in right now, although that's not a permanent solution. As to the viability of whether or not a volunteer, could work for the position, that's something we'd have to talk more with the chief about. Certainly happy to bring it to his attention.
Board members all set? Town of North Reading, notice of informational hearing. The North Reading Select Board hereby notify the residents of the town of North Reading that an in-person and virtual informational hearing on the following warrant articles contained in the October 6, 2025 town meeting warrant will be held Monday, September 29th, 2025, 7:30 Town Hall, room 14. The hearing may be accessed virtually via phone or the internet. The hearing will represent an opportunity for residents to learn more about the articles on the town meeting warrant, to ask questions, and to engage in discussion in advance of the fall annual town meeting. A listing of warrant articles is as follows. Articles 1 through 20 is printed in the warrant, mailed to every household. The hearing is held pursuant to Section 18-25 of Chapter 30A of the Massachusetts General Laws, the Open Meeting Law. Any interested citizen is welcome to virtually attend and participate in this hearing. Notice of explanation. This is the unanimous desire of the North Reading Select Board to encourage and allow the highest level of public participation in making decisions that affect North Reading. This warrant article hearing is intended to represent an opportunity for extended virtual discussion in advance of town meeting. We sincerely hope that you will join us for this hearing on September 29th, 2025 at 7:30 p.m. So again, we'll go through the warrant articles in numerical order, have discussions, we'll talk about what the purpose of the warrant articles are, and then we'll open it up for any questions or consideration by the public. And we appreciate everybody's attendance this evening and your participation. So, Mr. Gilbert, you want to start off with Article 1?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman, just by way of information, we talked about among the sources of funding, our free cash number there. There's a quick definition that's on there. You also see we do have other available funds in the form of retained earnings, infrastructure stabilization. Hillview has its own dedicated retained earnings. Parks and Recreation also has its own dedicated retained earnings. And then the sale of town-owned land, which the balance is just under $16.8 million, which includes proceeds from 2 sales that took place last year. So thank you for updating that, Lori Ann. Article 1 is a routine article at the request of committees and officers to hear and act on reports of town officers and committees.
On Article 1, is there any questions on Article 1? Ms. Muller?
Can I speak on that at town meeting?
Pardon me?
May I speak on that at town meeting? Do I need approval of the town administrator or
Just the moderator.
just the moderator?
In other words, the moderator will ask if there's any reports to be presented by town officers or committees. And if you're planning on making a presentation, I think the moderator would appreciate a heads up ahead of time so he knows who to call on.
If you'd rather I speak there instead of here, I can do that. So I'll ask you.
This is in capacity towards,
Public request that I want to make to talk at town meeting.
this article is again
Can you go
for,
on the microphone, Rita? We can't do.
We can hear you.
Please,
Yeah.
thank you.
Again, Article 1.
Someone-
Article 1, the moderator will call for any reports of town officers or committees under Article 1. And at that point, if there's a town officer or a committee which wishes to make a presentation to town meeting, this is when it will
Right.
occur. So,
No, I understand that. I want to, right, I'd like to speak tonight, but if I can't, I will find a way to do it at the town meeting, although I prefer to talk tonight.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if any resident can come up to the mic and speak on any of these articles that come up as part of the hearing.
if it's
correct?
pertinent to the article, yes.
Understood.
If it's pertinent to the article. So again, on Article 1, to hear and act on reports of town officers and committees. To my board members, I'm thinking that maybe we may want to make some sort of a presentation, just an overview of some of the things that are on our plate, you know, all these building projects, the fiscal constraints that we're going to be facing going into the budgetary session, just a general overview for the public as to some of the things that we're facing. Again, we just got the Facilities Master Plan Committee report. We've got, the bridges, we've got the elevator at the library, which again, there's some of it that's going to be pertinent to the articles that are in the warrant, and then just what we're facing from a budgetary standpoint. I don't know if there's an interest in the board for us to make a report. Again, as chair, I'd be happy to do that. If not, we can bypass it and facilitate town meeting too. Mr. Studo.
I think also, because we'll maybe just give whatever brief update we can, Mr. Gilberto, maybe we can get us, if the ZBA wants us to make comment for them of how the 20 Elm was going. It's kind of a big deal.
Yeah.
So, I mean, they don't have to be there, but we can do it on behalf. As liaison, I can do it because I know as much, but, you know, if there's anything in particular they want to give, because they're really kind of directing it.
Yeah, and again, the reports of committees and officers is not necessarily for a dialogue with town meeting, it's just a report to town meeting as to the status of things. It's not, and then at some point there's a vote to accept the reports of the committees, but it's not necessarily, nothing for town meeting to vote on other than one motion, which is to accept the reports. So, anybody else have any comments in relation to whether or not it's...
I support that, and I support the select board doing it as well. So,
Mr. Massey?
I don't think we need it.
I'm sorry, you don't think we need
I
it?
don't think we need it.
Okay.
We just need you
Sure.
folks to speak up so that we can hear you, all of you. Please.
So, Mr. Wallner thought it was a good idea for the board to be giving some sort of an update of status of things. Mr. Studo wanted to include whatever the update at the particular time would be in relation to the 40B application at the same time. Mr. Massey doesn't think that was necessary, he said. And Mrs. Moran?
I think a brief report would be helpful, as long as it's not extended the town meeting unnecessarily.
Right.
It tends to be long and folks need to.
Mr. Studo's in favor of brevity. Mr. Massey's in favor of more brevity.
I mean, we've had some
Right.
things that came up, you know. I
We
think
do have a
would be
few things that
helpful.
have come up, no
Right.
doubt. No doubt. All right. So I'll work with the town administrator this week to come up with a brief presentation, just an update on things. And included in that will be whatever the status is of the 40B, all right?
Yeah.
All right, any other, Mr. DeNaro, yes, on Article 1?
Yeah, I just want to know, about the three transcripts ago, it said that the senior center wasn't going to be funded, or you lacked the money, $9,500, something like that.
That'll be at a later article, and it will be addressed, and it's going to be handled. So that article will be coming up. There'll be ample opportunity to discuss that issue. But on Article 1, is there any further input or questions in relation to Article 1? Nobody online?
If I could ask anybody who has a comment to just put it in the chat, that would be helpful, or raise your hand.
Very good. Article 2, prior year bills.
We have 3 prior year bills that have come up, I believe. 2 are $500 each for drain system cleaning in the DPW, and 1 just under $900 for information technology invoicing for technical services at the police department. We'll hold this article open for a final vote the night of town meeting, just in case any other items come up between now and then.
All right. Any questions on prior year bills? Again, while we don't anticipate any more between now and next Monday, there's always the possibility, but this is what we have to date. Any questions? Comments? Input? Online? Hearing none. Okay, Article 3.
This is to create and transfer funds to a special purpose stabilization fund. Board has previously voted to pass over the article with funds instead to be transferred into the capital improvement stabilization fund under a later article.
Okay. So Article 3 again.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm just noting, it says 4-0 with 1 member absent. There may have been one.
Mr. Waller was not present.
Was there opposition to anybody on the passing over?
No.
I mean, I remember that correctly.
Right. All right, so, and again, so the board was recommending passing over this article because the funds are going to be put into a different account. All right, any other questions or comments in relation to Article 3? Hearing none. Article 4.
Mr. Chairman,
Oh, I'm sorry.
real quick, I think we have a motion set up for us for Article 2. Do we need to go through that, or do you go at the end?
Article 2, I think we were talking about waiting until town meeting night on that one. Again, Mr. Gilberto.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, yes, I did put motions in for any of the articles that still would need action prior to town meaning a vote prior to town meeting. In this case, I would ask the board to hold off because I don't say it's likely, but it's certainly possible that we'll have an additional bill that will show up between now and the day of town meeting. So thank you. So you have all of the motions that are outstanding are in there, but they don't all require action tonight, in my opinion.
Thank you.
So again, Article 3, any further discussion? And again, the recommendation from the board at town meeting will be to pass over Article 3. Hearing none. Article 4, appropriate or transfer funds to the stabilization fund. Mr. Gilberto.
This would be a transfer into our general stabilization fund, and the balance is almost $5 million. At this time, we are not proposing a transfer in, although we have been making transfers as part of our overall financial town meeting plan in June. I don't want to sit here and say that that will definitively be the plan, but that certainly will be something that we'll be considering for fiscal year '27 at the June town meeting.
So, in all likelihood, we'll be moving to pass over. Be moving to pass over, but we haven't made a recommendation yet? Or have we? No recommendation. And you're not recommending that we take any action at this point unless something changes?
I think at this stage we could vote to recommend passing over the article, yeah.
All right. Is there any other public input in relation to Article 4? Again, the recommendation from the administration to the board is to move to pass over Article 4. So, Mrs. Moore, do you want to make a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move to pass over Article 4, fiscal year 2026, appropriate to transfer funds to stabilization fund.
Second?
Motion made by Mrs. Moore, seconded by Mr. Wallner. Any further discussion on our recommendation, which will be to town meeting to pass over Article 4? Mr. Massey?
When was the last time that we drew from this stabilization fund?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, not any more recent than 2014, and probably further back than that I can think of.
Thank you.
Again, that's from the top of my head, but different than our capital improvement stabilization fund, which we draw from annually for the budget.
Thank you.
So on the motion before us, which is to recommend passing over Article 4 at town meeting, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous. And any other input on Article 4? Hearing none. Article 5.
This will be a transfer into our capital improvement stabilization fund. It's proposed as a $3,790,208 transfer of free cash, which includes $250,000 recommended as part of the capital improvement plan reported to the board in April, and the plan was funded at town meeting in June. The board has previously voted to recommend the article.
And just to
Mr. Massey?
try and put two and two together here, before the June town meeting of 2025, there was approximately ballpark $500,000, and now by the end of October meeting, we're going to have over $6 million. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. Through you to the finance director.
Thank you.
Mrs.
Balance
Gallagher?
is 2.4 million, we're going to add 3.7 million to it.
Thank you.
Right. Any questions, comments from the public in relation to Article 5? Appropriate transfer of funds into the Capital Improvement Stabilization Fund, again, approximately $3.8 million. Mr. Waller, did you want to weigh in? I mean, I know you were unable to make the meeting. So
It's fine. It's good.
what's that?
I have no comment.
I didn't know if you just wanted to weigh in on the recommendation as well.
No, it's fine.
Okay, good. All right. Any further discussion on Article 5? Hearing none. Seeing none. Article 6, fiscal year 2026, appropriate or transfer funds to solid waste stabilization fund.
Mr. Chairman, through you, this is a mechanism by which we transfer funds left over from our solid waste budget, which, as I think most residents know, is funded largely through a fee that's assessed to residents here in town. The balance was $11,681, which technically becomes part of the fiscal year's free cash. However, in order to ensure that the funds are allocated towards future solid waste-related expenses, there's a transfer that we suggest that they go into the stabilization fund for that purpose, which is what's proposed here, and the board has previously voted to recommend the article.
Mr. Massey?
Mr. Chairman, through you, just to communicate to the community about a lot of what has gone on with trash. This does not consider any potential litigation with Republic Services for trash. As in, that may come later, but that is not a part of this. Thank you.
Any other comment, input, questions? Again, we have a balance of approximately $12,000 we're looking to put it into the stabilization fund. Hearing none, Article 7.
This would be the transfer of funds for the participating funding arrangement. So very similar concept, money that was left over from our health insurance budget. Once we've got the claims for the fiscal year all closed out, which has not happened yet, but will probably happen this week. Whatever amount is tied to the town's share of employee health insurance costs would be transferred into this stabilization fund, which has a balance of just over $2.2 million, to be used for deferring the cost of employee health insurance in future years. And the board has previously voted to recommend the article in concept. This is an instance with a dollar amount, which right now is included in the larger free cash certification, isn't exactly known until all of the claims are run out, which generally happens late in September where we are now. And we hope to have that number at the end of the week for the board to discuss at its meeting on Monday night. It's generally around $200,000. It's been higher in some years, it's been lower in others. We expect it to maybe lower, but that remains to be seen as the final claims are paid.
Good. Any questions or comments? Again, the board has recommended 4-0 to make the transfer once the amount is determined. Okay. No further comment. Article 8.
Article 8, I'm going to start with the item on the bottom because I think there are folks here who are looking to hear this information. But this would be a proposal to transfer from line 51 DPW salaries from a position that's currently vacant to line 63 Elder Services expenses to fund a second day of leased space for programming at Aldersgate in the amount of $9,800, something that was brought to our attention after the fiscal year budget was approved in June by virtue of a grant not being awarded, reviewed, and the board had urged us to find a way to address this. This article, among other transfers, would include that transfer to fund that request for Elder Services for this current fiscal year. Additionally, $40,000 from Solid Waste Stabilization Fund would go toward the line 55 Solid Waste Management budget to fully fund our solid waste management plan for this fiscal year and avoid the need for a fee increase this year, although we fully anticipate that that will become necessary for the upcoming fiscal year, and that's something that will get discussed more through the budget process and beyond. The $50,000 for water enterprise retained earnings to water enterprise expenses for real estate broker services for the conveyance of 9 Mill Street. Right now, that's in place as still a request, but it's something we're working through with a broker to try to lower that number to a far lower amount. And so to the extent we have an exact modification to that, that'll be reported to the board at the next meeting for action at town meeting if required. $550,000 from water infrastructure stabilization to water enterprise debt to pay down the bond application, bond anticipation note for 9 Mill Street, which the town's in the process of trying to sell. We expect to sell the property after October town meeting, but this will ensure that we are free and clear of any borrowing that's required for it transfer again would come from water infrastructure stabilization and would go against the water enterprise debt service budget. And then finally, similar concept, $2.8 million from the secondary school building project debt service special purpose stabilization fund to go against debt service to pay down the bond anticipation note for the middle high school construction project. The number may go up if we are able to apply interest from the month of September against it as well. That's something that we'll look at, but we'll have a final recommendation for the board. Again, as discussed back in early September and in August, a final recommendation for the board to review at the night of town meeting on October 6th.
And again, we can, again, Mr. DeNaro, this is the one that you were interested in, but to the board members, we can have individual motions on each one of these, or we can take it all in one. And I know that there was a request to take at least one of these out, separate it from the rest of them. And again, most of them are pretty straightforward in relation to what we want to do. And then, what about the $30,000? You spoke about the $30,000? Finance director, assistant.
Oh, I'm sorry, no, it got cut off in the bullet.
That's right, okay.
Separated. So there's the last item actually was a $30,000 to fund the position I talked about earlier, the assistant finance director position. This would come from finance salaries, from accounting salaries, and go to finance salaries to reflect the vacancy in the analyst position that I talked about earlier this evening. So sorry for not referencing that.
Mr. Chairman, through you, just trying to understand, I think I was looking at the fiscal year closeout 2025. The SSBC settlement had $2.624 million in there. You get $2.830 million here. I'm just wondering the difference, what's going on there.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, to the finance director, please.
The 2.6 was the original settlement amount, but there's accumulated interest. So that was just a number that was our original amount, so that's what we put in the original documentation, but then once we accounted for all the interest, it comes to 2.8, and I'm hoping we'll have one more month by Monday.
Awesome. Thank you. Mr. Chair, one more
Yep.
thing.
Mr. Massey?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion for the select board to separate each line item under amend fiscal year 2026 operating budget and vote on them individually.
What are the wishes of the board, Mr. Studo?
I have a comment.
Comment, sure.
Can we just,
Do we need a second?
Sure. Is there a second to the motion? Not at this time, but we'll see.
if I get
Yeah,
clarification?
Mr. Studo, so clarification? Go ahead.
And can we just do two? Just for expediency's sake?
We could. Again, it's
That-
whatever the wishes of the board. Yes, we could. Yes.
Meaning if we, well, let me rephrase, because I don't know how town meeting is. If we separated each single one, would it each be its own article?
No, it's one article, and then the article, as far as the presentation and as far as the motions, it's up to us how we want to present it, or if the moderator determines that it's in the best interest of the town meeting to separate them, he can actually require separate motions, which
So-
generally he doesn't. He leaves it to the administration to determine how we want to do it.
So it's either click once, twice, or 6 times? Pretty much. I'm just trying to get
Yes.
clarification on that. Mr. Gould,
Mr.
what
Gilbert.
am I can't even call on you.
Certainly a policy decision for the board, but I thought the request was with regard to reporting the recommendation rather than a vote.
There's a motion on the floor.
No, there isn't a motion because there is no second. There is no motion on the floor at this point.
Okay.
So, Mr. Massey, are you looking to separate out each individual one or one specific one? That you, initially, I thought it was one specific one you were looking for.
Mr. Chairman, I made a motion to vote individually on each bullet point.
Right. There wasn't a second, so, but I'm looking for clarification as to, what are you thinking? Well, again, initially, a couple of weeks ago, whenever it was, you were concerned, it appeared to be about one specific.
Yep, I made a motion to vote on each individual transfer
All
of
right,
funds.
So there is no second then.
There was no second. Okay.
All right.
Thank
So,
you. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Again, if there was one specific one you were looking for, maybe the board would be willing to consider
Mhm.
pulling that one out. Is there one specific one that you're interested in pulling out and having a separate vote on?
Yeah, again, Mr. O'Leary, you know,
I'm just asking.
you're playing the game again. Listen, you know about it. You know about it. There's a motion on the floor. There was no second. That's okay. I respect it. No problem.
And again, for the record, I am not totally clear as to what you're looking for, as much as you might assume that I am.
Okay.
That being said,
Mr. Chairman, I'd
is
like
there
to,
any go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recuse myself on the appearance of a conflict of interest. I am employed by the project manager who was on the middle school, high school project here in town. I was not a resident or an employee at the time, so that is why I say appearance. Thank you.
So, is there any other input from the public in relation to Article 8
Mr. Mackey.
amendments to the
Can you open that door?
operating budget?
We're
Yeah,
on
you can leave that
executive
open. Yeah. It's an open meeting. Is there any other comments or questions in relation to Article 8, amending the operating budget? And I know there was significant interest in the $9,800 shortfall as a result of not getting the grant money. We're offering a solution to that to make sure that that's taken care of. To your point, Mr. DeNaro. Yeah, Amy?
All set?
Well said.
Assuming town meeting votes yes.
So, assuming
Yes.
town meeting votes yes. The recommendation is to do this, to fund it. Name and address, please.
Amy Sonia, 24 Fieldcrest Terrace. I just have a question about the transfer from the Water Infrastructure Stabilization Fund for 9 Mill Street. I believe that fund paid for that property, correct?
Correct.
So when that property is sold,
No, well,
did we not pay for 9 Mill Street out of the
not the
water?
stabilization.
But out of the water account, out of the water budget somehow?
We authorize borrowing under the water enterprise.
So
Yes.
if we are taking money out of this account now to pay off the bond, when the property is sold, is the funds from the sale of the property going back into this account?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, as the finance director.
No, they cannot. They're not allowed to go back in because the sale of property has to stay in sale of property, but within the enterprise.
So I guess my question would be, has it been asked of the Department of Revenue if we have proof that it was paid for out of this, and we're taking from this account, there's no way that we can put it back in?
No, so my question to, recently.
Can I ask you to come up, Corinne? I'm sorry, just so everyone can hear you. Thank you.
Originally, what was supposed to happen is if you sold the property first, you can use the proceeds to pay off the ban without an appropriation. Unfortunately, that sale didn't happen. So in order to secure that we do have funds to pay off the ban, we're going to use the water infrastructure stabilization. The one piece I do not know, and I'm trying to get clarification on, is if we appropriate from water infrastructure stabilization at an October town meeting and then sell the property before the ban comes due in May, which funding source prevails? We might be able to use the proceeds first.
To pay the
and
band?
then at June town meeting, put the funds back in the infrastructure stabilization. But if we're not allowed to do that, the funds would still stay in the water enterprise, and it would be, in essence, sale of town land is for infrastructure, so we could use it down the road for some other water project.
Is there a way that those funds can be,
Through the chair.
I'm sorry, is there a way that those funds can be, say, labeled that they can only be used for the water? I just feel like we're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and I don't understand I'm unsure of what the benefit of is taking the money out to pay off the band. If we're selling the property, we can just pay the band off when we sell it.
We've been trying to sell it, we haven't sold it, so we had to roll the ban, or we cannot roll the ban past this May because it's been 10 years.
Okay.
So it's either permanently borrow on a piece of property that
That we don't
we
know.
don't want.
We don't want and won't
Or
own.
do it this way.
Okay,
So I am trying to get clarification, and hopefully I will know by Monday night.
okay, thank you.
The goal would be to get it back where it belongs.
Right.
But what we're trying to avoid is a 10-year bond on a piece of property that we won't own anymore, and we're still going to pay for it 10 years down the road. So what we're doing is paying it off sooner rather than later to save money.
But the funds will stay with Water Enterprise.
Correct, and the funds will stay in Water Enterprise, so they'll be available for appropriation for intended use. Good question. Any, Ms. Mullin?
Through the chair, if Mr. Studo is going to make a motion, it makes sense if somebody has to recuse themselves from one of them, why don't we make just one motion for the first one and then one motion for the rest, so one of the selectmen can vote for the other ones?
Mr. Studo?
That is what the plan was.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, why don't we just do it? It makes sense, so I don't care if anybody's here or not. It makes sense to a citizen with somebody, a selectman, unless you want myself to do it, as a public person. Just stand up and make a motion for the first one, because you already know he has to recuse himself, and combine the other ones, so he doesn't have to recuse himself.
Through
Just
the
like-
chair,
Yeah,
it just,
Mr. Studo?
we need a clarification from that person, and we didn't get it, and I'm not making the motion for it,
Well,
because
can
I'm
he-
not his dad.
Did he leave because he's recusing himself from that first one, so he can't talk about anything in there? I don't care if you left or not, I'm just saying I think it makes sense, just like if a selectman can't make a meeting, we try to change around the schedule, or not vote on important things. I think it's important if somebody, I'd like to...
Well, that's what I was trying to get clarification
understand.
on, and I wasn't getting clarification, so I couldn't.
But right, but he said it afterwards, so whether he's in the room or not, I think it makes sense that we vote one. I can't make amendments, only the selectman can. I'd like somebody,
Working together instead of against each other.
right, I'd like somebody to just make the motion to put the first one, secondary school building, under one, and put the balance under another one. I think it's simple.
Suggestion, take it into consideration. Any other,
I don't see the need to do it.
Because we already said someone has to recuse himself from it, so whether he left the room or not, it seems to make sense that he should be able to, anybody should be able to vote on the other four items.
This is just for the board to make a recommendation on the article. It doesn't preclude anybody from voting on the article itself. It's just for the board to be making a recommendation on the article. It is
No,
not-
board, but I'd like to hear from all board members when we go up there. I'm just saying, rather than have somebody else at town meeting stand up and do it and cause more time, unless we want to waste more time, it seems like it'd be
And
simple
again,
now to do it.
At that point, the board will have made its recommendation.
And then if anybody wants to change it and say, I'd like to...
The board is not going to make a change in its
The board might
recommendation.
not, but somebody in the audience might. Why waste time doing it when it makes more sense to do it right now? 5 minutes and we're not wasting time at town meeting.
I think we're missing.
I'm not missing
It has
it.
nothing to do with voting at town meeting, the content of the article. It has nothing to do with that.
But can
has
all
nothing to do with it.
selectmen, can all selectmen vote on it, or the person just say yes and
Yes.
recuse himself?
But
Can I just clarify?
Mr.
So at the
Smith.
last meeting, Ms. Mullin, the way it was gonna go is, this is just to recommend the article, and then at town meeting, it was going to be separated by said party, that sits to my right, who was no longer in the room. We were gonna do exactly what you said already. It did not require this board to take a motion tonight on it. It's a,
So someone's going to have to, you're going to change it at town meeting?
if
and
you,
just say-
if you had listened to my comments earlier in
I did.
relation to separating these out separately, because there was consideration being given to that, we can still do that.
And the select board would do it then?
yeah, and we talked about it 2 weeks ago, to do exactly what you just said. It just, that would happen then.
Well, I
not
was
now.
here 2 weeks ago, and,
I'm sorry about that.
no, I was here 2 weeks ago, and
Yeah, that's.
And
Well, I-
didn't get to speak. so
But again, you know,
I
as
couldn't
far
make
as,
where
but
I
as
would've.
far as the content of the public hearing on the warrant articles right now, it's for the public's input in relation to the specifics in the warrant article and what's going to be before town meeting. It is not, it doesn't have anything to do with recommendations of this board. What we do as a board, making a recommendation, thumbs up, thumbs down, 2, 3, 5, 1, whatever, 4.
I'm just asking, would you make the recommendation at that meeting, you could vote to recommendation?
You still have opportunity to do that, but at this point, the recommendation on the, we voted to make a recommendation at town meeting, is what we voted. Recommendation to be made by this board at town.
Okay, but you'll vote to change it if you choose to, and make it
Vote to
two,
change what?
make it 2 motions. Separate the first one out and leave the second ones.
That will be determined by the board.
When?
at some point. Yeah, but-
No, at some point before the
Yeah,
town
but
meeting.
but as far as the content
I
of the public
understand, no, I
hearing right
understand.
now,
You understand what I'm asking? Is it
I
gonna be?
understand what you're asking, but it's not pertinent to the article and the content of the article and the action that the town meeting's going to take on it. So,
I'm just saying, I don't want more confusion at town meeting. That's all. It seemed like it would be simple to make it 2 articles now. I don't want to waste time.
Understood.
to talk to citizens at that
understood.
meeting.
As far as Article 8, amendments to the operating budget. Is there any further input or questions?
There was a question online.
Okay.
Maureen Doherty, North Reading Transcript. On Article 8, are the requested transfers bundled under one article because each of these line items was part of a single budget article at June town meeting? I think the answer is yes to that question, if I understand it correctly. These are all adjustments to the fiscal year operating budget.
Which was made as one motion.
Customarily would be proposed to town meeting as one motion unless directed otherwise by the board. The second question is the request to fund the assistant finance director for the remainder of the fiscal year a new position or position that has simply been vacant. So the assistant finance director position has been vacant for all intents and purposes since the current finance director became the acting finance director 3 years ago. 3 years ago.
Feels
Only-
like decades ago.
3 years ago. So that position has been vacant. We've carried it from 1 year until the next, but have not proceeded to fill it, even after updating a job description. With the resignation, with the vacancy created by resignation in a related department, we are proposing to now proceed with filling this position and hold off on filling the one that more recently became vacant. Hopefully that addressed the question, Ms. Doherty.
Okay, Article 8, is there any further questions, comments? The operating budget. Hearing none. Okay, Article 9. Amend the code, Chapter 66, Finance and add Veterans Services Revolving Fund and establish a dollar amount for the Veterans Revolving Fund.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this would be an article to establish a revolving fund, dollar amount for Veterans Revolving Fund. It would amend the town's list of revolving funds by adding this new fund entitled Veterans Revolving Fund to further establish an annual fiscal year limit for said fund. There's been some initial discussion about dollar amounts, and we've been encouraged to look at larger rather than smaller numbers. Looking at the finance director, did we settle on a number yet on that? I know we started low, and then we're looking at increasing that number, right?
We had talked about matching Elton Services at 50,000.
50,000. So for those who don't know, this would basically create a scenario where the town might be coordinating activities that are going to be paid for by veterans. It would allow the town to collect money from the veterans, then organize the event and pay the bills associated with the event. And that's for events that have a cost with them or for maybe that are not able to be funded by a gift account or otherwise. But it allows us to sort of serve as the financial administrative backbone of a transaction on behalf of multiple veterans. And this is something that's come up as events have been scheduled that might have a cost that veterans are willing to pay for. I think the board unanimously already recommended the article. We'll ask for a vote on Monday evening to affirm that the request be in the amount of $50,000.
And again, keeping in mind, it's not appropriating $50,000 into it. It's allowing the account to take in up to $50,000 and hold up to $50,000 at any given time. Right?
Yeah, great.
And again, with the uptick in activities through Veteran Services, this is a necessary need to create the account so that more activities can be offered and funds can be collected and vendors can be paid on a timely basis without appropriation to do it. So that's a great idea, and the time has come. So, any other comment or questions on Article 9, the establishment of the Veterans Revolving Fund? Amy?
Amy Sonia, 24 Fieldcrest Terrace. What are the limitations on the revolving account fund usage? Like, who dictates those funds that come into the town and get put into that revolving fund, who dictates what they can be used for?
Mrs. Gilman?
The article itself is for programming, so it's like field trips in different, like say they had a function like they had a veterans dinner. Right now that's all sponsored through gifts, but if for some reason they couldn't and or they wanted to subsidize with gift and the veterans pay a portion, it'd allow us to do things like that.
So this is separate from the gift account?
Yes.
And if the veterans director feels that there's an activity that he wants to do with the veterans, are his hands going to be tied? Like, is he going to be allowed to do those things? Does he need to get certain permission? How does that work?
I believe that's mostly for the Veterans Committee.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, so the revenue would be money that was received in connection with the programs and activities. We expect it would largely be paid by veterans who wish to participate in the activities, but it may not be. The representative or board authorized to spend the money would be the Department of Veteran Services, so its department head would have that authorization. Now, customarily, the department head is consulting with the Veterans Events Committee, so that may be happening as well. And other than whatever required procurement might have to take place and be reviewed, the authority would lie with the department.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on Article 9? All set. Okay, Article 10. Rescind authorizations to borrow. Mr. Gilberto.
We do not anticipate any authorizations to borrow to be rescinded at this point. Do we think we're prepared for the board to vote to pass over at this point?
Yes.
Okay, so the board could vote to recommend passing over the article based upon where we're at for planning to try to knock off one more vote that might not have to be taken on Monday night, and I believe a motion was prepared.
So, again, this is a space-saving article. In case we had some prior authorizations to borrow and didn't utilize all the funds or didn't need them, we would rescind those authorizations through town meeting. There doesn't seem to be anything pending for consideration, so therefore, if it's the will of the board, you can make a motion right now to pass over, or wait till tell me, okay? Mrs. Moran?
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend passing over Article 10 with rescind authorization to borrow.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous. All right, any further discussion or input as far as from the public from Article 10? Hearing none. All right, Article 11, capital budget.
This would be to amend the fiscal year 26 capital budget. Two projects that we will be proposing be authorized first. As was discussed leading up to the June town meeting, a request for additional funding for street paving in the amount of $535,000 to be funded from free cash. It's actually a lower number that was originally forecast, it was forecast to be $800,000, but we received additional state road construction money, both Chapter 90 and similar type funding. So that lowered the amount that we need to request from free cash. And then also to fund the Flint Memorial Library elevator improvement project to make repairs to and get that elevator operational, $500,000 from free cash. Both projects having been recommended to the select board by vote of the Capital Improvement Planning Committee.
So again, a couple of big projects again that we had discussed at the June town meeting, postponed action pending financing what we had available as far as the paving, as well as the unanticipated breakdown of the elevator at the library, which needs to be addressed as quickly as possible, and therefore the article is being proposed to get the cash available to borrow to fix the elevator. So on the amended capital budget, is there any particular input, Mr. Massey?
Mr. Chairman, for street paving, $535,000 from free cash. Can we list the streets? And one, why I want to bring that up is I don't think I ever got the response to clarify, in June we talked about North Street, Concord Road, and this was the same streets, so I'd like to, if there's a gap in what we predicted we were going to do, that's acceptable, it's fine. But to be able to explain it,
Sure.
I think is important. Street paving, got to be a little bit more transparent to the town meeting.
Sure. No attempts to hide anything here. The projects were reviewed by the Capital Improvement Planning Committee both in the middle winter, and then an update was reviewed at the meeting, I believe, last Wednesday. But certainly to provide an explanation, we expected to be here saying that we already have funding in place to pave North Street, and we need money to pave Concord Street. So that's how we walked out of town meeting in June. Since then, based upon the condition of North Street, we've identified that a much more substantial reconstruction is required than what is readily available to us under what we have for regionally procured contracts. So we have contracts that we've bid out, used to be with us, Winfield and Middleton. Now I think it's just us and Middleton that have bid it out. So we won't be able to rely on those contracts for North Street. It's unfortunate, but everybody knows the condition is terrible out there. It's a much more involved reconstruction project. It's going to be a much more involved procurement process, and it won't be able to proceed until the next construction season. Concord Street, which is what we were initially deferring in June until October, we have reviewed and discussed a change in the order to prioritize Concord Street because we can reconstruct that using readily available contracts more quickly, hopefully as soon as before the end of this construction season. And then I'm going to mix in two things that are added scope that are all included in this. First is there are areas in the town center that are outside of what we are going to be disturbing with trenching for the town center sewer project. So I'm not talking about the Main Street sewer project, which has not been authorized at this point. I'm talking about the historic center of town, connecting the municipal buildings to the middle high school wastewater treatment plant. There are areas, and if you've gone to the Flint Memorial Library, you've seen them. They're covered in crack sealing and in need of being repaved. So we're looking to do that at the same time. So that was some additional funding that we needed to request. The number is escaping me, Mrs. Galvin, I'm sorry, I don't know if you happen to remember what it was. But that's also included in here. And then we got some good news. It looks like the state, which I reported months ago at this point, which is looking to do a reconstruction of Route 62 toward the town center. They're willing to meet us kind of at that area, so we'll have a clean paving from the center of town out to what I think will be the Middleton line based upon what we've heard initially from the state, so that's good news. And then the final piece is sidewalks out here. So there is a sidewalk. It starts at Main Street and it comes to the town hall, and then there's no sidewalk on the grass strip in front of the town hall. There is private property adjacent to the town hall that was required to construct a sidewalk as, I believe, part of their site plan approval. And then there's no sidewalk beyond that. So the idea is to either while we're reconstructing, but if it's going to unnecessarily delay, then after we construct North Street for paving, putting in a sidewalk. So that's also included in here. So the additional paving in the town center, the adjustment of the priority so that we can get to Concord Street more quickly, and then the additional funding for the sidewalk here on North Street, that's what's all going into this dollar amount. So hopefully that explains it a little bit better for folks.
I sincerely appreciate that. Thank you, Mr. Gilberto.
Any further discussion or question? Article, yes.
One more question. We got $1 million coming from free cash. I'm curious what we could do with that $1 million in free cash if we were able to fund from a stabilization fund like capital improvement or our Pulte funds. And maybe through you, Mr. Chair, if Mr. Gilberto is the right guy to answer what we could do with $1 million in our free cash, that'd be great. I'm just wondering if there's been any consideration to any stabilization funds.
Sure. So we are far more limited under the law for the use of stabilization funds. However, paving would generally be an allowable use, both from the capital improvement stabilization fund and from, I believe, the sale of town-owned land as well, right? Both of these projects. They both would likely qualify to be funded by those other projects. I think the challenge that we have, though, is while free cash is far less restricted as to what it could be used for, we are accounting for what will probably be another $1.2 million for debt service in fiscal year 2026. Again, not an ideal financial strategy, but something that we have done by basically transferring free cash into the capital improvement stabilization fund and transferring it out. So we will do that. The other things, and to be, specific, the structural deficit that we talk about here, using free cash to solve that beyond what we're already doing for debt service is likely to put us in a difficult situation with bond rating agencies. So I can't, and the bond rating agencies basically, they determine our credit rating, what interest rate we can borrow at when we go out. So what they think about us is important because it saves us money and interest, meaning all of us. So it's tough to say what else could we do. I'd love to say we could plug the holes in the operating budget with it, and we do that to a far lesser extent each year. If we can find things that we can argue are one-time costs, we try to say, well, we'll fund that with free cash. So that's something that could be done. Is it going to be $1 million? If I'm being upfront, I'm not sure I see it right now. But it is certainly true. We have much more flexibility with free cash than we do with those other funds.
Mr. Massey.
Oh, God. Went right over my head. Sorry, I'll come back.
Any other questions or comments in relation to Article 11, capital budget?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry, Mrs. Mullin, Mr. Chairman.
Massey, then Ms. Mullin, yep.
Are you able to, this is something I don't know, are you able to save free cash? Are you able to carry free cash year over year?
Through you, Mr. Chairman. So there are ways to do that. However, there's some risk associated with it too, which is depending upon the moving parts that you have from one year to the next with receivables, which is a big one that I think can affect things for the tune of hundreds of thousands of dollars. You may end up, I don't want to say losing it, but it's no longer available to be set aside for you because there's an offset to it. I don't know if you want to elaborate on that explanation.
Ms. Galvin.
You can only spend it between when it's certified and when it, like, whether you put it into a stabilization or preserve it. So you'd have to, if you don't spend it, it kind of like closes out the next year and becomes part of the next year's free cash. So really the only way to save it, so to speak, is to put it in some sort of stabilization, because then it's earning interest and it's staying with the stabilization. Otherwise, the interest just goes to the general fund. So it's really advantageous because you saw how the secondary school fund built close to $200,000 over the few years that it's been in a stabilization.
I don't know anything about that.
And the U.S., the 2.6, the 2.8, that $200,000 is going to help us pay down debt instead of it being overrun. So.
Well, I just feel like, Mrs. Galvin, through you, Mr. Chair, is that we often use free cash for a lot of things here, and I'm starting to try to grasp a handle of the system and how we can slow this trajectory from going down to starting to trend a little bit upward financially. This is one of those things I'm thinking that, how can we save money to bring it to the next year so we can avoid an override request by the schools? These are the kind of things that, come to my mind and keep me up at night, and how we can move things around.
But it would never go back into your operating. It goes into your fund balance.
But if it goes into a stabilization fund, you're stuck with being able to only have to spend it on a certain thing. You know what I mean? And I'm trying to get, maybe the stabilization fund, the general stabilization fund, is the place to put it, because this way we can kind of have a little bit more freedom and less limitations on where we can put it. But when you put it in solid waste or capital improvement, we're limiting ourselves on where we can spend that money.
It's all growing for future capital, though. It's growing by the interest to pay for future projects, whereas your operating is coming from your renewable sources. Leaving it unspent isn't renewable.
I get it, but if it's in the general stabilization fund, are you able to then use that freely?
No, the general stabilization is the stabilization that the bond rating agencies look to the most for your rating. So if we build that, we're more likely to increase our bond rating. We were this close last time to being upgraded. So it's really best to build that fund, because your other ones, because they're special purpose, they feel you're using those for purposes. So they really want you to build your general stabilization.
Again, as far as if there's additional free cash left over, the availability timing is also skewed. It doesn't become available until
Till the end of the next
to the
year.
end of the following year.
Oh,
So
I
if
get
you
that.
don't use it and appropriate it appropriately, it just flows over to the next year, but then you lose a whole year before you get to use it again. And in the meantime, it's not gaining you any interest. So it's a,
And I guess that's why I was pushing more towards that typical stabilization fund. Get us some interest, allow us to use some of that money. And this actually, now I'm walking myself back. Are you able to use regular stabilization fund for operating expenses?
No.
Okay.
Generally,
there
they
you go.
don't want you to use any stabilization because it's
Gotcha.
one-time funds in their mind.
Gotcha.
So we typically add in the spring, mostly because we usually have so many things that occur throughout the year. We try to plan for debt service in the spring, but the other big piece is snow and ice. If we don't have free cash set aside, or in our minds set aside, and, I mean, we've had storms range from, you know, a year-end cost of $250,000 to $800,000. And if you don't have a funding source, it has to hit your budgets and you have to cut, you know, because yes, you can raise it on your recap the following year, but it impacts the rest of your budgets.
Understood. Yeah, it's just trying to wrap my head around how North Reading keeps getting more property taxes. You know, permits are still getting pulled. Our free cash is going up rather than, you know, above our average. And somehow we still have the opportunity for our schools to want an override next year. And to me, I'm like, I don't see why, you know? So it's only one opinion, but
It looked like our free cash went up this year, but there are two key pieces. The interest, which if interest rates start to fall, that's going to decline. And the other piece was the building permits from Pulte, the last two buildings, went into regular building permits this year as regular estimated receipts, whereas in the past, they were going into revolving fund. But we closed that revolving fund so that we could purchase the fire truck. So it went back into our regular, helped our estimated receipts. But unless we have other big building projects, that's not going to continue. And that was about $800,000. So those big projects can impact your estimated receipts from year to year, but you can't necessarily count on those funds the following year.
understood. Thank you, Mrs. Galvin, I appreciate it.
Ms. Mullen?
Article 11 is ending right now, and next is adjournment. So I just would like to ask why last 2 weeks ago, we weren't told there wouldn't be a public hearing. For the past few years, we've always had public comment before every town meeting, which makes sense because most of the time people have questions to ask by that point. So I guess I would like to come back to, and if not the chair, at least reach out to Mrs. Moran and Mr. Studo. Mr. Walner, you weren't here last meeting, to ask for some public hearing tonight.
Again, as far as the last June public hearing on the warrant articles,
Mhm.
there was no public comment again. There was the opportunity for that evening.
think
to
that- I
decide
think there
specific-
were-
It was not.
I
That's
think,
the first time ever.
It was not. But
Oh, well,
again, public comment in relation to the warrant articles, absolutely, this is what
no,
it's
it's
all about.
okay, it's
That's what it's
not,
all about.
it's not in relation to
So,
public. It's-
Again.
I guess
I would
that it just seems that there were questions that, there were only two of us at that meeting, and a lot of people still on there. Seems like, I know I had questions, I don't know if the people there,
Ms. Mullen, we're in the middle of a public hearing right now on the warrant articles. So if
so
we
I could,
continue.
I could speak after the warrant article, and before we
Then I
adjourn?
think that is the only thing left on the agenda is one other item. No, so
Adjourn.
it's not on the agenda.
No, I know, there are a lot of things that weren't
It's
on
not
the
on the
agenda.
agenda.
There were a lot
No,
of
they
things.
were on the agenda. What was on the
No, there were a
agenda
lot of
was-
things on the
So
agenda, the
anyway,
25
Ms. Mullen, do
minutes.
we have any
that-
other comments on Article 11?
Okay, I'll stand up
No,
after
thank
this
you.
again, thank you.
Any other comments on Article 11, capital budget? Anybody online?
I'm not seeing it.
All right, very good, thank you.
Can I
Let's
say
see,
one
this one here, recommendation, do we feel as though we're prepared for,
Having received the recommendation from the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, I believe the board could vote to recommend the article, yes.
Did we get anything from the Capital Improvement Committee?
They didn't file a written report, but I can tell you from being at the meeting, that they did vote, I believe it was unanimously, to
Oh,
recommend.
I just didn't know that they recommended anything to us, and maybe one of you two wouldn't mind sending an email and say, hey, FYI, capital improvement as recommended to the, I mean, these are the things that keep us updated. Other than that, how would I know? For example, I'm not on the capital improvement planning.
You were on the call.
Yeah, I wasn't paying attention.
Can I just make a comment
Just
on Article 11?
Just take the loss.
So,
Okay.
on Article
Well,
11.
so in
regards to-
Excuse me.
Why don't you step up?
Mr. Massey, please,
You can do something.
comment on Article 11.
No, in regards to Article 11, I just want to make note that the conversation that was just being had between our finance director and some of our select board members was extremely good and educating for all of us in the room.
Right.
And that doesn't happen often. So I just want to make that point, because unfortunately, there's a lot of animosity between people, but that was a great show of how we can work together.
Again, Finance Director does a terrific job, and those are good questions. So, and again, that's why we have the public hearings here, so they can come out. Again, and what are the wishes of the board in relation to capital budget? Do you want to take action tonight, or do you want to wait until town meeting?
I think Vincenzo and I want to go ahead. We're on the capital improvement.
I'm fine.
Yeah.
But as long as everybody else is fine.
Fortunately, we
Okay.
can't hear you.
You can't hear me?
All right.
Oh, I can hear you, it's just the mumbling
Okay.
that goes on after you talk. I can't hear it.
All right.
And I have
So-
very good hearing.
If you have a motion, so as members of the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, you're recommending Article 11, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Mrs. Moore.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend Article 11, amend fiscal year 2026 capital budget.
Is there a second by Mr. Wallner. Any further discussion on the motion to recommend? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous? Abstentions?
Look at me.
I didn't hear.
I said yes.
Yes, okay, great. Okay, unanimous, thank you. Now, Article 12, Fund Town Building Repairs.
People.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not, through you to the questions I'm hearing. I don't know what's going on with the red marks on the screen, but they're not in the document, but they're not on just my screen, they're on your screen too, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. Sorry if that's distracting anybody besides me. With regard to Article 12, this would be an appropriation of funding that would reflect the cost of the temporary ramp for the library, which I'm pleased to report was approved by the State Architectural Access Board at a hearing last Monday, I believe. I'm also pleased to inform you that we expect the cost to be far less than the $50,000 we were looking at, and expect to be able to rent for a period of approximately 6 months the ramp. We don't have final numbers on that just yet, but that installation is going to occur as soon as later this week or early next week. Once we know what those costs will look like, on Monday night at the pre-meeting, we will report to the board and ask that they be the funds basically, after having been spent out of a prior town building repair article, that they would be replaced in the same amount by an appropriation at town meeting on Monday night.
All right, so generally, what's in the current account for approximately?
There's multiples of $50,000 at
About
$150
$150,000.
over multiple appropriations.
Over multiple appropriations to fund various municipal buildings, and we're looking to take care of the temporary ramp to access the first floor of the library for a approximate 6-month period, and then whatever that dollar amount is, you'll be looking for us to recommend to town meeting that dollar amount to reimburse that fund so it's available for other anticipated repairs as opposed to the unanticipated repairs, correct? Any questions now on 2026 Fund Town Building Repairs?
And we would suggest the board vote its recommendation once we know that dollar amount on Monday night.
So we'll do that Monday night, okay. Any, again, on Article 12, any input? Yep. Mrs.
Just a
Fillmore?
quick question, Mrs. Fillmore, 24 Field Crest Terrace. Why isn't the library elevator under this?
Because it exceeds, you're talking $500,000 as opposed to $20,000, $30,000. smaller dollar amounts.
Mr. Gilberto, could
Mr.
you answer
Gilberto.
that question for me, please?
Thank you. So there's a couple of reasons.
Okay.
The first is the cost, which is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, exceeds what we have available from those prior town building repair articles. So that's the first reason. And then the second reason is we really weren't authorized to proceed with all of what we're doing with this until that Architectural Access Board action happened last Monday night. So that also was a delay in getting the ramp up. But the biggest obstacle was we just don't have enough money authorized to be spent for that purpose lying around. For the ramp, which is under $100,000, under $50,000, I think we're at this point, we do have that funding in place.
I just see all these different monies going different to the same place, but not to the same place. You know, the
Sure.
library has this, library has that, and it's just all going somewhere. It's just like the next article that's coming up, which we'll get to also, another study committee. But again, my question is, why can't the library elevator be under this? But apparently you missed my question, the monies. Thank you.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I think it certainly could be funded under this as an appropriation. But with such a large amount of money, it qualifies as a capital investment, and that's why we put it under the capital article.
Yeah, but again, in Fillmore, 24 Fieldcrest Terrace, to speak again, why couldn't they have been combined? I mean, $1,000 added to $500,000 makes $600,000. So what's the difference with $1,000 added to that prior article?
Mr. Gilberto?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, that's a certainly more than fair question. I think for me, the biggest difference is that we have the funding available already under previous versions of this article. And in order to comply with the Architectural Access Board, we have to put the ramp up. So not that we can not repair the library elevator, because we also have to do that, but that funding was not, there isn't enough money readily available right now to do that. So that's why they were separate. If Mr. Parisi were on the call, I don't believe he is tonight, he would be saying I would like them all to be together.
Right.
At one point, these two things were on separate tracks, and so they continued on separate tracks, but here, 7 days before town meeting, they've merged together.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, and that's usually what happens. You know, you have this and this, and instead of foreseeing something going on, the public gets caught off guard. You know,
Sure.
we need money for this, we need money for that. Well, then we're gonna add another study plan for the next article.
Maybe.
You know, it's baffling.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, I share your frustration. Mr. Masuri, God rest his soul, let me have it in the office 5 years ago, 6 years, 7 years, like more than that, about the elevator. And, you know, we put a lot into it and repaired it, and it lasted 3 or 4 years beyond what was probably the end of, its service for us. So it's very frustrating to me that we're dealing with this once again. And I think of him every time we talk about this, because he flagged it as an issue many, many years ago. And like I said,
That's 88 when it was done, right?
Possibly. So believe me, we share your frustration, and we're doing everything we can to try to get it repaired as quickly as possible and to mitigate the improvements. But we're trying to do that responsibly. So when we were here 6 weeks ago, we were talking about having to buy a custom fabricated ramp to put in front of the building that would then be ripped out of the front of the building once the elevator was repaired. We didn't want to do that, and I want to recognize the DPW director, but in particular the facility superintendent, who put the effort into seeking a waiver and getting a waiver from the state in order to do what we're doing now. So believe me, we share your frustration. The staff who are, may or may not be watching, they share the frustration because they are living it as well, trying to provide services to people to comply to the extent we can with our requirements under the ADA. But make no mistake, I share your frustration.
Thank you very much.
And I would just like to add that there was a significant amount of time, energy. I never talked about ramps as much as I have in the last 2 or 3 months in my lifetime. And then, again, the frustration as far as the ability to just temporarily get a ramp so people can get in the building is a much bigger task. And again, to the town administrator's point, our staff did a terrific job of getting the waiver and getting some answers, and again, doing it as low a cost as we possibly could without having to buy a ramp that we're never going to have a use for again. So kudos to them. So again, Article 12, any further questions, comments? And again, the recommendation will be made by the board at town meeting once we get the figure on the ramp costs, right? Right. Article 13, appropriate money. Continue planning.
Mr. Chairman, just confirming, that ramp was not included in the $500,000?
Correct, it's not.
Okay,
No,
thank you.
yeah. Appropriate money for continued planning, design, permitting, and/or construction of modular replacements of the J. Turner Hood and E. Ethel Little elementary schools. And I think that we have the superintendent and the chair and vice chair of the school committee with us this evening, and we appreciate you taking the time to be with us. I know you had a meeting this evening just about a few minutes ago. Sure.
I'm going to put up the slides for you, Dr. Daly.
Thank you. Right, thank you. So just to be clear, as you said, we did present this to the school committee earlier.
Can you put the slide up?
Is that better?
Maybe.
Hello? Is that better?
Well, I guess you need to speak up, Patrick. Again, some of these are not for here, they're for...
For home?
This one is for you, the one in front of you is for you. Speak right into it.
All right. So we are presenting this. We presented this earlier to school committee. We're presenting here tonight. We're going to. Our plan is to present something at town meeting. That's why it was suggested to put it on the warrant. To be, as was just commented, to be out ahead of this to share as an update on where this project is going. This is something that we've been sharing out for several years, and we're just providing an update on where this is going and what opportunities are presented to us. So this is our modular units at the Hood and the Little School that are being replaced. Next slide. The Massachusetts School Building Authority, created in 2004, the MSBA is a quasi-independent government authority, and its purpose is to work with communities to create affordable, sustainable, and energy-efficient schools in Massachusetts. And so I just wanted to start by sharing about the process that they go through to rate our different schools and our school systems. There was recent surveys that were conducted in 2016. There was one that we just went through this process this year. The results are not yet available, but I just want to share with the state of our schools. Next slide. That these reports would rate a rating of 1 is the building is in good condition with few or no building systems needing attention. 2 is the building is in generally good condition with few building systems that need attention. 3 is fair to poor condition, and 4 is the building is in poor condition. So this is for the overall school buildings. And next slide speaks to obviously where we want to be with our schools, our newer schools. The high school, the middle school, and the bachelor school are in condition 1. The building's in good condition. And our Hood and Little School are both in number 2. You know, just as a frame of reference, a brand new elementary school built in a neighboring town was $130 million for an elementary school. That's more than our middle high school project. That with an MSBA reimbursement, it was an $85 million burden on the town and a $44 million reimbursement from MSBA. Next slide. So looking at our 2 schools, the J. Turner Hood School, built in 1959, had an addition in 1969, another addition in 1998, modulars in 2002. We did boiler updates in 2024, roof repair projects. We completed phase 1 this year in 2025. It is in need of automation system and windows. Hood School has the most work that needs to be done. I think what's important to note, as I'm going to speak to a meeting that we had with MSBA last week, that it's not necessarily just the year the school was built, it's how well they've been maintained. And our schools have been well maintained, and they have had additions and supports over the years through their systems. If you go to the Little School, next slide. Little School was built in 1958. There was additions in 1970 and 1999, modular units in 2001. There was a roofing project in 2017 that went through the MSBA process, and we added new windows in 2024 and 25, most recently there through the repair program. Next slide. So this is just showing you, so now what we're specifically talking about here are the modular units. There's 2 modular units at the little school and 4 modular units at the Hood School. These units are over 20 years old and well past their existing life expectancy. They need to be replaced. There's significant deterioration to the exterior siding, the interior trim, the flooring, roof deck flooring, and the railing of each unit. So these are just a few slides from our study that are up here on the screen from the Hood School. The next slide shows the little school. And so the engineering firm that did the study that came out of the Capital Planning Commission looked at options for repair, replacement, and it was also suggested to consider what it would be instead of building modulars, again, which have a shorter lifespan, what it would be to put a permanent structure in place. And so that's what we're talking about here. So we were charged to go out and to look at those different options through the study. Next slide. So what we're talking about here is a pre-K. This is the purpose that they're used for now. This is the idea here that we're talking about is an early childhood center. So bringing together what happens at 2 different buildings into one place. So currently we have classrooms at the pre-K that are used for, at the little school that are used for pre-K. Currently, the modular units there are not even able to be utilized this year. We had a lower enrollment, so we were able to use a kindergarten room for a different purpose and move a pre-K into the kindergarten space. But those are really difficult spaces to use. At the Hood School, we have a special education classroom, 3 special education spaces, and a digital learning. That's the current purpose for this year. There are currently some kindergarten classrooms at the Hood School that are not being housed in rooms that are designed for early childhood. They don't have the sinks, the bathrooms that they're supposed to have for those spaces. So the vision for what we did when we spoke with MSBA was to have an early childhood center that would allow for centralization of pre-K. This would allow us to possibly to expand to support the demand. We currently have a lottery for pre-K, which doesn't allow all of the parents in town who want to have their children attend pre-K. As I think we know, there's a goal in the state to have universal pre-K for all students. There's also a goal to have universal kindergarten for all students, which we still do not have. We're one of the few districts that still do not have that. And what this also presents, not only when we're consolidating pre-K, it makes logistical considerations that we're able to have the staffing, the drop-off, the pickup, the curriculum, all of the teachers together on one site. What this also offers us is this opportunity to provide some related updates to the Hood School. So through our most recent meeting with MSBA, we saw that this is the direction that they're saying, because you're building, if you were to build a permanent structure onto the Hood, there would be related updates that would need to be made. So to be able to, with one MSBA proposal, be able to add this addition to the building and build this permanent structure to replace the modular units, we would also have to and be able to make some of these required updates to the Hood School. Updates that we would have to make in the future at some point either way. And so this is the piece that we're going to explore a little bit more detail. Next slide. So through our study that we first had, we had I'll refer to it as it was a $35,000 study. It was the initial study just to see what our options were and whether it was worth pursuing something with MSBA. We looked at 3 options. Number 1 was to keep the existing modular units, which are nearly 25 years old in some cases, and to renovate with the recommendations that have been made from the study. Option 2 would be to demolish the existing modulars and to provide new modular buildings. The study looked at keeping modulars currently at the Little and the Hood. Another option we could consider would be to have all the modulars at the Hood, but the prices and everything that we speak to in option 2 here was based upon keeping them at the 2 sites. And then the third option was to demolish the existing modular buildings and provide a new permanent wing at the Hood School. Next slide. So when the study, when it looked at option one, the costs were approximately $1.3 million, and that's without any escalations around, costs for doing business today. And this was not recommended by the study, and they did point to the much shorter useful life for modular units that are nearly 25 years old. So this would be just repairing these and fixing some of the problems would be about $1.3 million. Next slide. The other options, option two is to demolish the existing modulars, and the cost that came in for that to replace with modulars is about $4.6 million. We put the range there. The 4.6 included some escalations that we asked them to build in closer to the time that we made our presentation last year to the CIPC. Obviously, this does not include a centralized early childhood center. It could require some additional code updates at the Hood and or the little schools based upon the modular units being there, but it's not likely. It is a certainty with a permanent structure. And obviously, a consideration is that modular units have a much shorter lifespan. The third piece, which again is newer information for us, but we did enter into a process with the MSBA to, which I'll review in the next slide in a timeline, but we had them out last week as a part of a senior study. There would be an additional feasibility study and a schematic design. These are very expensive, but when you're looking at the project that they're talking about, with the scope that they're talking about, we looked at similar projects and similar feasibility studies that are out there for similar projects in the range of $700,000 to $2 million. So we put that full number based on several projects that are out there in other schools in the last year or so. Any project through MSBA would be reimbursable. So I think what people need to keep in mind, as I said before, replacing a school like the Hood School or the Little School, we're talking $130 million. So it's a lot of money to put into a feasibility study. Obviously, that's a very high number, and these feasibility study numbers keep going up and up. But if you're able to do a project that can be reimbursed by MSBA, that would take an older school building and be able to make it useful for the foreseeable future, and we're not talking about a new school project. That's what we're looking at, and that's the discussion we're having. And when you look at a large picture of all the different facility plans for the town, where does a brand new school fit into that versus where does having a project like this with money that we already have to spend to replace the mods, is it worth it to pay for the study to then figure out what the cost would be to have a new wing and additions and updates and improvements to the Hood School. So this would require updates for the Hood School, and this would include that early childhood center with the pre-K, expanded pre-K potential that I spoke to earlier. Next slide. So just to review the timeline, back in June 2024, we had a modular feasibility study that was approved at town meeting. In October 2024, we presented the cost estimates from that $35,000 study. The recommendations of that group were for option 2 to replace the modulars and option 3, the permanent structure. They did not support just doing the small repairs to that. So those were the two options that we pursued. We were charged with contacting MSBA to see whether they would consider supporting this project. So we filed a statement of interest with the MSBA in April. We heard from them in the late summer, and they asked to come out for what's called a senior study. That happened on last Thursday. They brought us into the building. They made some comments. They walked in the door of the Hood School. One of the members said something like, when I came in the door, I wondered why I was even here. Okay, so what that is messaging to me is that the Hood School itself, overall, they're not looking to build a brand new Hood School, but obviously the modulars is what's getting them in the door, and then from there we may be able to do things to improve the Hood School to make it a viable option for the foreseeable future. So what we're doing tonight, we have a school committee presentation that we just completed. We have our presentation here, and we plan to provide a similar update at town meeting on October 6th, just to share that information. There's not a request at this time. We have to file then a response to MSBA on October 8th. We have to talk to them about the scope of the project and kind of confirm some of what was in our senior study, answer some of the questions that they asked of us last week, including this idea of, is this going to be pre-K, is there going to be kindergarten, are there other pieces involved? And at this time we're looking at this being pre-K. We don't have the plans to bring all of kindergarten together as well. Next slide. The next phase after that, in December, the MSBA would review our current piece, and they would decide whether or not they were to invite us into the program. A few things that they made really clear was that, so there were many applicants this year. I believe there were 17 that were selected to move to this point. There's 14 that are in a similar category that we are in. They're obviously going to base their decisions on where the greatest need is. If we were to be funded, there would be a whole set of steps that we would take from there. If we were not to be funded, they made it very clear that we should absolutely consider reapplying again in the future, that being turned down does not mean that they are not in support of the project. It just means that they may not be able to support it at this time. So if we were invited to apply, there would be a whole bunch of steps that we would be taking to move through here. That's what's listed there as the deliverables. The last one being the feasibility study agreement. So in order to do that, we would then need to go back to a town meeting to come up with, whatever the cost is for a feasibility study, which we would have a closer figure, obviously, at that time. But we just want to give the big picture here, the number that we were told to work with. And we would get town meeting approval. I put special town meeting in there in case it was needed, but I think the 270 days from December would probably bring us up to be able to discuss this at a June town meeting. From there, after the feasibility study, then if there were to be a project that was funded, that would also have to go through, obviously, all of the steps with town meeting and everything, but we'd have more information about the project cost and what the reimbursement would be from the town. So these are just still the very early steps. This is informational, that we're just getting information about what these options would be, so we can make an informed decision. Are there any questions?
Mr. Goodman.
To be clear, what is the request of October town meeting?
It's informational. It's informational at this point. So we are not putting anything on as an ask or a request at this time, due to this turnaround that's
Yeah, to my board.
Let me just amplify something.
I'm sorry. The chairman of the school committee, Mr. Friedman.
Sorry. Let me just amplify something Dr. Daly said. The money that we may be asking for in the spring only applies if the MSBCA accepts us into the program. If they don't accept us into the program, there's no need for a study. The study is a requirement of the MSBCA. So if we're going to be reimbursed for anything, we have to do the study. And then one other point I would make is the additional items that were mentioned to bring us up to code for the building, those are also not optional. Those are mandatory. Again, if you go through the feasibility study and schematic design, and they say, oh, there are 6 other things, we have to do more windows, we have to do something else to whatever internally, those are mandatory as part of the project, again, if you want to get reimbursement. So think of it this way, we've been getting windows periodically over the last bunch of years, and we're paying for them all on our own. This gives us an opportunity, if something like that is identified, to get partial or a substantial reimbursement from a state agency to get that work done, but it is not an option, it is mandatory.
I'll just say, if you look at our capital, our long-term 5-year capital plan, a lot of the larger cost items are hood school items.
Mr. Studo.
When you mentioned, when you said foreseeable future on the permanent, right, is there if that's the road, based on this timeline, in another year, we're debating it, and I don't even know how long a study will take, but what is could you have a definition of foreseeable future?
I don't. We asked the MSBA for that too. That's not something they're clear on. They did say that some of the schools they're looking at now are 1912, 1925, so they're 100 years old. So just as it's all about how you keep the building up and what you do to maintain it. But they're, at this stage, and I don't know that they would be able to say that's going to guarantee, but the message that I certainly heard was that this would be a way to bring the hood up to a place where it would be viable for the future.
Because I think that when someone's trying to calculate value in their head,
Yeah.
right? The big number can seem like a big number, but if you can say like you do this and, you know, an entire generation's all set, that changes kind of everything on it. Like,
Right.
right, rather than say, well, this will buy us 10 years. If you can say it's gonna buy us 30 years, it's a very different, I mean, sell to the community, for lack of a better way to put it.
And I think we would have that by the time we were talking about the full project. We'd know what, you know, other numbers are for a full replacement, and then what this would be, and how many years you get. That's the whole conversation that we need to have.
For you,
Mr.
Chair.
Finn,
I mean, if you think about the three options, and to your point, the first option, if you look at sort of the duct tape solution of, hey, let's just repair what we've got, think of that rough numbers, think of that almost like a 5-year thing. Doesn't quite make sense to throw in $1.3 million for a 5-year solution. If you start getting into second and third options, then you start talking about much longer lifespan of, okay, repairing modular to modular. If you assume modular has 18 to 20 years, it's 18 to 20 years. Permanent solution, these buildings already have way beyond 20 years. Permanent solution goes way beyond the 20-year solution. In terms of the extras that we're talking about, I mean, part of that will be determined by the study. We don't entirely know what's going to come up with that. So it's a little tough to predict. We've got in our head that many of the things that we're talking about for CapEx expenditures for these buildings anyway will likely be on there, but we won't actually know until a study is performed. Again, that's mandatory to get reimbursement. Sorry, I think I partly answered what you're saying.
Yeah, no.
Mr. Massey?
Yes, so I got a few things, but I was going to start with what Mr. Gilberto brought up originally, and about what the ask is to the town. You guys are putting an article on the warrant just to inform people, not request any money, which was before you were doing. Do we regularly do this, just put articles on town meeting warrants just to inform people something's coming, or do we have hearings, do we have special meetings? What? I was just confused by their September 8th meeting when they did say that they want to pass over, had to put on the warrant article just in case, more to let the public know.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we have had instances of that happening with larger projects where we may want to just provide updates. So it doesn't always happen, that's for sure, but it certainly, I believe, has happened in the past.
Okay. Yeah, I found that interesting. What were the results with the MSBA ultimately? What's their initial thought just from walking through? It sounded like, I couldn't really take it. It sounded like you were talking about a new school at first, and then you kind of backtracked it, so I'm just trying to follow a little bit.
So just to clarify, I was clarifying that a new school is not on the table. It's not anything that they would, I didn't get any indication from them that we would ever qualify for a new school.
Or that you were
at
looking
this
for.
time. And that's not something we've ever been talking about or looking for. I know that's something you've brought up to me as just something to consider, but that's not something that is on our radar. And so I just wanted to clarify that from the outset. We think it's the responsible thing to do to update on this project. We asked for it to be on the town meeting warrant. We didn't know what information we were going to have from MSBA as of October 6th. And so we feel that at this time, the best thing to do is to keep the public informed about what could be potentially an ask in the future. I think that's the right thing to do.
So I sent an email to you on August 28th about this project. You and Mr. Connolly sent me about 300 pages of the study.
Yeah.
I read every word. So I sent an email questioning some of the things. Have you had the opportunity to read that or taken any into consideration?
I think we answered everything that you asked.
No.
I don't recall anything we didn't respond to within a day or two.
There's a couple major things, and the reason I'm the only one who voted no on this is because this is my wheelhouse. So I deal with this every day. I would be surprised if the MSBA were to invite you on the program for the programming that you're trying to set up. I would be surprised as far as additions and miscellaneous repairs. I hope they do. But
This is all of that is coming from what they basically were talking with us the other day.
So, in this presentation, you mentioned that the options recommended included a permanent structure, in which my email, I read the studies, there was no recommendation for a permanent structure.
Yes, there was.
There was not. I'm happy to go through with you, but
Yeah, there was.
there was an estimate for what you mentioned, $4.6 million, which started at 4.3. Got the answer of the difference of 300,000, and I get that. But there is no estimate on record for 4.3 or $4.6 million. There is an estimate on record for $2.9 million, and the recommendation from your hired consultants are to replace the existing trailer with a new trailer. Now, my personal opinion, before I even read any studies, was to do exactly that. The reason why I brought that up was because, one, the programming that you'll read in my email is that MSBA does not reimburse for pre-K.
Yeah, that's incorrect.
That is
We clarified that with
correct.
them on Thursday. That's incorrect.
They do not reimburse for pre-K.
Yeah, Mr. Friedman.
Yeah, we actually asked that question of specifically, and in large part because you were asking, because that was a concern. So that was actually a very specific question we asked. We actually asked it in multiple forums to try to make sure, and they very clearly said that this project does apply even with pre-K.
Because it's only pre-K and not others.
They
Other
made it
grades?
very clear that that's what we should be focusing on, and that would be reimbursed.
And
Just
again, that's
pre-K.
from them.
Just pre-K, right? Not other grades then?
I'm not sure what you're getting at, but they answered our question in the affirmative that that the project, as we've outlined, is eligible for MSBA.
Understood. Just,
But by the way, it was a very fair question. That's actually the reason we asked it.
yeah, no, thank you. I appreciate that.
Just to let you know
That's
that
good information.
Jeff asked the question, Patrick asked the question, I asked the question, he asked the question, 4 different iterations to get clarification specifically, and they were unequivocal in their answers.
Thank you, Mr. O'Leary.
You're welcome.
Mr. Daly, back to you. Back to this estimate, and I think that's what got the sour taste in my mouth, is the estimate came in at 2.9, you're throwing 4.6 around. I've mentioned to you $1,000 a square foot at 7,500 square feet is 7.5 million. And what I got as a response was we took into account the projected reimbursement from the MSBA. That is, as soon as that happened, Mr. Daly, I knew you guys really, truly didn't know what was going on.
I don't think that's correct.
And well,
That's not correct.
I'll forward it to you.
The estimate that was in the numbers that we presented to CIPC was based on the study that we received. We hadn't talked to MSBA. All we did from that recommendation that I talked about here was we took a next step to do a statement of interest with MSBA. None of this had anything to do with MSBA up until this statement of interest in April. The first study was just that $35,000 study. They gave us 3 different options, and they recommended, for one school, they recommended option 2, and one school option 3. And that the little school, I believe, being the one that they, that's not where they were going to build the permanent structure. The permanent structure was to be built at the hood. We then, in addition to what was shared with you, we brought back to them again 2 or 3 other phases of this based on questions we got out of CIPC, and that's where we came to the 4.6, because we also asked them to do an escalation based on some changes. So that's all in what we did and what we presented to CIPC. MSBA is much later. That's happening now. We haven't had MSBA before.
Totally get it.
Yeah.
The answer I got was it includes MSBA reimbursement projected.
Yeah, I don't think so.
But I just want to make sure that you're clear. When you go to ask the voters for a vote on X amount of money, if the MSBA is involved, you request up to the full amount of the bond that you need to make. So if the project is 7.5 million, you go out for 7.5 million. If the project's 140 million, you ask the voters for 140 million, even if that $55 million is going to be reimbursed. You do that as a matter of, God forbid the MSBA ever goes away. You always do that So as soon as I got that response, I was very, very confused.
I'm not sure.
I do want to bring up another point that I brought up in this email was about the clawback. The MSBA calls it the recovery. And what they do is if a project lasts, if let's, for example, my rough estimation of both those schools is probably another 20 years, right? 15, 20 years. So if you get accepted into the MSBA program and a project that you just did on that building was within the last 20 years, they will claw back every percent. They will prorate what they gave you, and they will take it back on that new school. I think it's very important for you to understand a lot of these little things, and just potentially, Mr. Daly, just keep an open consideration that for people that kind of do this all the time, and just, I want the town to get the most reimbursement that they can, and I hope that you would too.
So based on that question that you brought up, we asked that question specifically. They said that is misinformation.
Which question? Which one is that?
About the clawback. They said it's very clear that that does not have an impact. Each project is reviewed independently, and that would not have an impact on any future building projects in the town, or I believe even with the school. We asked that and had that clarified specifically.
He asked
By
that.
there was about 12 members at the meeting. So.
He asked that.
Yeah.
I don't believe that.
Can I make?
And that's fair.
That's fine. I'm just going to say.
I heard what
I
you
do
said,
not.
and we asked that question to clarify.
And we got, again, unequivocation on their part, that it does not impact.
Hey, look.
I think there's a simple solution, though, as someone who does not know. I'm not an expert on either. If you get me, a disinterested third party, I'll call it, because I am not involved in these exchange, and I am not an expert in it in any way. If you get me bullet points from the MSBA for what we just said, I will read it into the record of the next board meeting.
So we're happy to follow up. But we, because those were good questions from Mr. Massey, who's obviously in the field, we asked those questions specifically to inform any decisions that we make. So again, all of that information and the process we would follow is a very clear-cut process. We've been through it before with the bachelor and with the middle high school. We follow all those same processes as they're outlined.
Thank you. Mr. Wallner.
Just one question. Is the study, I don't know who did the study or whatever, but is it considering enrollment trends? Because it seems like our enrollment has been reducing over time as opposed to increasing. I'm just wondering if they considered that or if that was considered part of the study.
Yeah, I think the enrollment numbers are part of it. I don't know specifically, I don't know if Mr. Connolly's on the call, whether that feedback was given. Our enrollment is balancing out, and it is on an upward trend too over time. So I'm not sure to what extent enrollment numbers were in the study. I don't know. Can I phone a friend?
Sure.
But Mr. Connolly, you on the call?
Yes, I am. So the question was about enrollment and the future projections of enrollment.
And just whether that was a consideration in the $35,000 study, I believe.
So, I mean, we shared our enrollment numbers with them. They didn't dive into, too deeply getting into those or analyzing the enrollment. We just had shared with them that our enrollment is certainly, going to experience a sort of a moderate increase over the next, 5 to 10 years. And there's certainly developments that could certainly impact that as well. But we have a growing, high needs population as well as enrollment that's going to grow, and there's certainly a need for these modular spaces at both locations in the foreseeable future, and then the needs of the high needs population is also ever growing as well. So those were taken into consideration when we had discussed that with the team doing the study.
When you say high needs, do you mean special needs? Is that the same?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. I appreciate that. It's an important consideration because, when I look at the numbers, they seem to be reducing, but, who knows the future, right?
There's a bubble coming up now through elementary.
Is there?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Well, good to know.
I see the strollers in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah, it's definitely increasing.
Yeah.
Well, I'm amazed young families can even move into our town, which is,
Me too.
what's going on.
Mrs. Fillmore?
I have two.
Yes, Dr. Daly, this article is not asking for an X amount of money. You're just bringing this to the people and saying, now what happens? They say, okay, we're going to let you consider this study. Are you going to come back to town meeting and ask for $3 million or $2 million to do this study? Just so that the people know,
Yeah.
we're not appropriating any money at this town meeting.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to thank you.
Correct, yeah. What we would consider would be for the June town meeting, possibly, if we are invited to the study, we would come back with a request for that feasibility study, if that's the direction we're heading.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. DeNaro?
I heard a couple of times saying that you're going to meet with the public and explain things. Would they ever meet with the public without you?
They do it all the time.
Well, I suggest that we don't, because you have a vested interest in this project. We don't. You do. I mean, we don't because we don't have a fiduciary responsibility. But maybe we do because we're sending kids to school. But anyway, I wouldn't want to have you, handsome men, give us a debate on why this is going to be good. So it should be with somebody from the board who can answer questions from the town side of things.
Yeah, we were present, the town administrator and myself were present with the MSBA meeting last Thursday, for several hours with them, and it was very enlightening. And so we're intimately involved in the whole process.
But I say again, I just think it's a bad idea to let them loose on us, because we're negotiating against ourselves.
Well, I can assure you that the dialogue between the school department, particularly on a capital project like this, and general government is ongoing monthly through the Capital Improvement Planning Committee meeting. And when we take on a project that would be such as this, same process that was followed with the middle school, high school project. I mean, all of government, town government, including town meeting, were
I got another
involved
thought.
along the way.
I think if you appointed a group of people to be spokespeople for the public, maybe then they have a responsibility. So I think if you do it that way, I'd accept it, but I wouldn't. I'd be scared to death having these guys tell me about how good the plan is.
Well, keep in mind, you know, the members of the school committee are members of the public here and residents of the town of North Reading too, and taxpayers. We all have a vested interest.
I know,
for
but
sure.
but I don't have my hands on the dog's tail like you guys do.
So, let me,
Mr. Friedman.
Chairman, just to let you know, anytime we've talked about this, it's been an open session in school committee as well. For example, and yes, there was an overlap with this meeting, so you can't be two places at once, but there's also a record of that meeting. So the same presentation you just gave was given to the public even just a few hours ago. And anytime we've spoken about this has been really through open public, so it's definitely not behind closed doors. We do have smaller meetings like with the MSBA, but then again, but as was just mentioned, that's a cross-functional meeting across all boards. And I know you're not talking about me as being the good-looking one, so I'll assume you're or them.
I just actually want to follow up Mr. Naro's question on, he said fiduciary. Is there, besides the fact that we want to keep them as nice as we can within reason, is there a point where if you don't do certain things, the state comes in and says, you're doing this, whether or not you like it? I assume there's got to be a point where it's like, I don't care what your townspeople think, you're doing this.
Yeah, there's a certain point where those modulars won't be usable at all, and they're getting close to that. And I think that with all the repairs that need to happen, again, these are all on the capital project docket now, and this is a chance. Clearly what I heard from our meeting last week was this was an opportunity to do some of these projects at the Hood School as well as build this wing and replace the modulars. So those are all things that would have to happen at some point in the future.
I only asked because we had a previous warrant article where there was some, like the ramp at the library, like, correct? That's something that has to be done. And then there's 80, so I'm saying that you hear all the time, and we're fortunate enough in this community where people have funded everything to even more, which is a great community. That's why everyone wants to be here. But there are, you can Google it, statewide. The state forces things on from multiple categories on towns and cities in the Commonwealth all the time who just, I don't want to say ignore it, they just can't appropriate the money until it's like, well, now it's like, you know, like Exhibit A, Chestnut Street Bridge, shut it down. Thank you for playing. And they gave us 24 hours notice. Like, I'm just, right, that, we didn't want to shut it down, and we thought it could have worked a few more months, but they were like, no, you're closing it. So that's why I asked the question, because if it's something that eventually is going to be forced on us, and there could be issues along the way, I think that's something else the public should know. Because again, it makes it part of that value of, well, if I got to do it anyways, and if Mrs. Holbert was here, she'll tell you that we've delayed so many things that the cost just keeps going up. That's another consideration that should be taken in, not just for this, but for anything, because we always talk about it.
I completely agree. That's why we're getting ahead of this and doing these studies now.
Yes, Jeff.
I mean, when you look at some of these units, and even some of the pictures that that were up there, when you start talking about water penetration, you start thinking about mold, you start thinking about other things that are you're continually fighting against. And when we're talking about other elements of those schools like windows, we're trying to keep ahead of them because, again, if you start letting the seals break, start getting low up water, all of that, that's what we're trying to avoid. To simply not do it gets you into the category of where you're talking now of
because unlike the Hillview, we can't just take down the hood and call it a day.
Fair point.
Thank you.
Amy?
This could be pure ignorance on my part, but why does the study include a pre-K center when we don't even offer full-day kindergarten?
Sure. So we already have pre-K, so it's just a matter of that's what's already housed in these locations, and that would be the consideration because we'd be relocating what's at the little school to the hood. It's pre-K, and we'd be combining the pre-K in those things. This isn't speaking to the tuition, which is another issue that we have with the free kindergarten. But we do have kindergarten. We don't have a free program. We have an enrollment-based, tuition-based pre-K, but this would be the housing for it, as well as the integrated pre-K with our special needs program. It would all be in one place with facilities that are designed with the smaller bathrooms, the smaller sinks, everything for a proper pre-K class.
Mr. Massey?
Mr. Chair, quick question. Any chance you guys got in contact with Mr. McCrow?
I did.
No, sorry, I just didn't hear what the question was.
What was the question again?
I was just checking in if you guys have been in contact with Mr. McCrow.
I did. There was another MSBA member who was at the session from North Reading. I did reach out to him and did speak with him, but I haven't, we've been playing phone tag a little bit. We haven't quite connected, but I appreciate that lead because that's another local contact. But we had a lot of good leads at that meeting last Thursday.
Awesome, yeah, thank you.
Yes, sir. Front and center.
I have 4 questions, but I'm only going to ask one. Jim Gannon, 9 Duane Drive. Jeff, I just got a little confused. So I'll ask 2 questions. One, there's no money unless they approve us. Is that how I read that? And then as far as the reimbursement percent is concerned, that would be a percentage. I thought I heard 100 of it, then I thought I heard less than that. So we don't know what that percentage would be at this point.
What was it in the middle high school? Was high 40s?
Yeah, typically it's in the 45 to 50 range, 44 to 48 range for a reimbursement, but that's not anything that we have any. It's just based on other projects that we've looked at.
Okay. And since someone asked about pre-K, I guess I'll ask too. So we're not a gateway city, so pre-K is not covered in North Reading. But there is a potential that the legislature will fund pre-K in the rest of the state.
There's certainly there's a goal. One of our goals through Student Opportunity Act is that we should be moving towards universal free pre-K. That's the expectation from the state, that we should have that as a goal. We have I had to apply for an exception because we're one of the few districts that doesn't have universal kindergarten. So we're allowed under the SOA to do that. We've been reducing. We have I believe the second highest tuition for kindergarten. We've now reduced that by half. We have not met our goal of eliminating that. We've had to, due to the budget, had to keep that in for the last few years. But there is, at the state level, a push for universal free pre-K. And you're correct that there are mandates in some cities. We're not among them at this time.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Again, I would just again like to comment on, first of all, the tenor of the meeting the other day with the MSBA was extremely positive. They started out by saying, you know, there's been so many applications. They pared it down. We were in this smaller group, which they identified as, you know, worth the visit. And again, they were very forthcoming as to why they thought we may qualify. And again, it was not what I expected. And much more favorable and interesting, and they, again, guided us towards, you know, look at the long ball here, the long term, as far as the Hood School itself, what you're going to have to be investing in the years to come. You have your needs here. They talked about an equity issue as far as, you know, within the district, and the ability to address those issues and get it all centralized in one place. And again, as far as resources, they just were diffusive as far as offering resources and sources of information, you know, moving forward. Again, they also stated that they're going to be making a decision somewhere on December 12th, and as the superintendent said, Dr. Daly said, you know, it's strictly budgetary, you know, so that the application's open again, you know, in January. Put it back in if you don't get it in December, because there's no such thing as just because you didn't get it this time. It's strictly dollars and cents, what's available, what fits in the budget, and what can they get done most expeditiously for current fiscal year. And it's a whole new ballgame the next year put in for it. So it was excellent meeting. Dr. Daly.
Just to say, into Mr. Studo's point, they did pick up on pieces from our narrative, and picking up that we do have special education programs there now, an equity issue if we're offering special education program in a facility that's less sufficient than where the rest of the main building is. Those are the kind of things we absolutely would have to address. I think it's pretty clear that the modular units are not sustainable as is. I think that part's very clear.
That made very clear.
But those are the kind of things that we obviously have to act on it.
Any other questions, comments? And again, I appreciate your willingness, first of all, but also your making the time to come here. I know you had your meeting prior to ours, and you hustled over here to make your presentation. Mr. Denaro, you have another comment or question?
Yeah, just following along.
Sit back down.
With what we were talking about. The meetings that you hold with the public, does any time a yes vote from the people or no vote determine what you would do?
Very much so. Very much so. And again, this December 12th meeting, MSBA will make a determination. If they determine favorably, then it's incumbent upon us to come to town meeting and say, this is what we need for dollars and cents for a feasibility study to address what needs to be done and what concerns have been raised by the MSBA. And so that would be June.
So
if we get the go-ahead in December, you'll be hearing from us in June, and with all the public hearings ahead of time.
But what you're saying that is, we show up for 3 or 4 meetings, whatever, in different groups, and if everyone's in favor of it, good, you sold a school, half a school, stuff like that. So, I mean, again, that frightens me to think that we're all going, wow, that's really nice. I mean, why wouldn't we think that's nice, right? It's a brand new school.
We're not talking a brand new school. We're talking.
I know, but whatever it is, it's improvement of some kind.
Right.
It's worth $2.5 million, and you know, so anything would be a yes. So you know, how are the townspeople supposed to recognize the weight of their? It's almost like walking into a company and he shows you what he's selling. You go, wow, I like that. Hey, we got this one. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and then what's gonna happen is, you know,
You do?
there'll be full disclosure as far as the cost associated with any project, and what the cost is to the average taxpayer per $1,000 of assessed valuation, and people are gonna have to make personal decisions as to the affordability and whether or not they can support it or not. They might like the idea but can't afford to do it. You know, and those decisions, that's what town meeting's all about. You know, those personal decisions will be made then, and people will be able to do the math. How's it gonna impact you? How much a month is it gonna be? How much a year in taxes to support it or not?
Well, you know, again, I hate to keep doing this, maybe we should write you a letter offline, but, you know, every citizen or every resident doesn't have the same qualifications as some other people. You might have people that are great accountants, you know, bean counters and stuff, and other people are good with engineering. And so you're going to have different, depending on the makeup of the town. You know, that's what I'm concerned about. So again, I'm not in favor of having townspeople be the people who are buying the system. You know, is there a caveat saying that if you attend this meeting and you like something and you say yes that you like it, you just move the goalpost?
Not until you appropriate the money.
I know, but I mean, is it fair putting that on us without us knowing that we're actually giving the okay to buy something?
You will know, whatever's presented to town meeting, you will know what you're voting on and the consequences associated with those votes. At what point during the process does it move us forward, and at what point are you gonna be asked to spend money? So all
But
of
you're
that's-
gonna have a regular vote like you would anything, so you're not gonna have just show up one day and say, hey, most of the town people like it, so we're getting it.
No, it's town meetings that are determinant. We can make recommendations all we want. You know, school committee, select board, finance committee, it all goes to town meeting and the taxpayers decide.
So you're
Well,
gonna
the voters
have
decide.
an actual vote like all the other votes, you know?
We
Okay.
can't just let him decide.
What's that?
Okay, we can't just let him decide.
No, he wouldn't want me to.
Gotta
decide.
put everyone.
Yeah.
Through you, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
In all fairness, we don't know what the feasibility study is gonna present to us. We don't know the answer to that question, that's why we're doing it. If they come up with a ludicrous number, think of whatever number you want in your head, we always have the opportunity to second guess and say, okay, maybe this isn't the way to go.
thanks, but no thanks.
But it depends on, you know, if we're accepted into the program, that's the first step, but it's not the only step.
No, far from it.
Right. So we can, depending on the information we get at each step of the way, we can always say, okay, let's put the brakes on it. But we would do so, you know, just as we would make the decision to move forward, it's really all about, you know, does it make sense for the school system? Does it make sense for the community? We're facing the same questions that everybody in the room is.
Amy, you have another?
Just a real quick question about the MSBA meetings that you have. It seems to be joint between several committees possibly, or secondary school
We're
building
invited.
committee or whatever. Is that open to the public so that the public can go and listen and ask questions? Or is it just the school committee that's invited to those meetings with invited other committee members?
Yeah, this meeting was their senior study. They asked us to have specific people at the table. So they wanted certain representatives from the town who also were familiar with the history on capital projects, and the town administrator, and then we, select board chair, and I think, Mr. Kelleher was there to represent the history there, and then a few members of the school. If the project moves forward, there would be building committees and all those different pieces that are all very public facing. So this was just this was a step that MSBA takes in order to decide whether they're going to then keep the process moving forward. So they have some specific things they need us to do on October 8th, which then they would use in their decision-making process for December.
Just, you know, they had, I think, 8 representatives.
Yeah.
They had 8 people from the SBA come out to the school. Fill us in. Ask us questions.
To ending.
This was
Tour
their
the
site
schools.
visit.
Yeah, so it was very good.
Fantasy football.
All right, any other
That's good.
questions on Article 12? Was it 12 or 13? 12. Excuse me, 13. Put my glasses on. 13. Anybody online, Mr. Gilberto?
I'm not seeing any.
Excellent. Dr. Daly?
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Chairman,
Ciao.
Mr. Vice
Nice
Chair.
night. Thank you.
Tim, thank you for your comments. I know it. I mean, this is totally out of character.
I'm going to save it for town meeting.
Good. All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. I'll appreciate you coming.
What?
And
Yeah, it's not fair. Not fair.
so again, as far as any recommendation, at some point, they'll be making some sort of a motion to pass over, I would assume. So we'll wait till they do that, and then we'll vote the recommendation on Monday night.
The way out.
Article 14, appropriate funds for Martins Pond maintenance and treatment.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this would be a request of $15,000 from free cash for an article that would be available for invasive weed treatment, both for this current fiscal year and for future fiscal years until it's exhausted. And it was something that came forward from the Martins Pond Reclamation Committee in consultation with the Department of Public Works. Funding it this way allows the funds to carry over from one year to the next without putting pressure on the annual operating budget.
Yeah, just from a historical standpoint, at one point, we had money set aside in this fashion originally, and we thought it was going to be more of an ongoing process, and we asked to have it put into the DPW budget, but then they didn't need it on an annual basis, so this actually works better to put it into this type of a fund so that they could cross over fiscal years as far as the appropriation, and then we could backfill those funds as they're needed. So we had it into the DPW budget for a brief period of time. Again, as things got tight, it got whittled back, then the funds weren't available. So now this seems to be the best solution, to have monies available as needed rather than based upon a calendar year. So, any other questions or comments on Article 14, appropriating funds to Martins Pond maintenance and treatment? And by the way, that group and organization working with Merrimack College has done a great job of addressing the issues with Martins Pond, and it's gotten substantially better over the years because of their efforts, and we applaud their efforts for sure and appreciate it very much.
I'll just say the chair of Martins Pond Association, exactly what we're offering is exactly what they're looking for, and it's exactly what they need, so thank you.
Any other comments in relation to Article 14? Online? Okay. And again, the board recommended 4-0 to recommend it. Article 15, appropriate funds for substance abuse treatment, mitigation, and prevention. Mr. Gilberto.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, this would authorize a second round of funding for substance abuse-related programs. This funding source is actually proceeds from settlements that the town has reached with opioid manufacturers and distributors that can only be used for this type of purpose. There is a program that's in place that is recovery-focused, and they are looking to continue and potentially expand this funding, this programming using this fund. Again, it's funded as an article intended to give some more flexibility from one fiscal year to the next, depending upon the need. And the board recommended 4-0. I see it says a motion will be offered by the CPC. That's not correct. It would be offered by the Select Board.
Any questions on Article 15?
Just, knowing that the Youth Services Director job is at risk, can this money be used potentially to underwrite that position?
It's possible. There are restrictions on the use of the funding, but it's possible that we could meet the definitions that are required. I think a more direct correlation is probably the Youth Substance Abuse Coalition position, where the grant funding is also expiring at the end of this federal fiscal year, this upcoming federal fiscal year. So we are looking at that, and that may be a necessary funding source come town meeting next year. So.
Mr. Massey.
Mr. Chairman, just to jump on to Mr. Wallner's point, is there an opportunity to, in an effort to try and fulfill his request, is there an effort to, we're transferring $3-point-something million into capital improvement, can we take out 25, 30 grand instead of, from free cash, instead of going to capital improvement, it can come to youth services?
Would you mind just helping me understand?
Sure. Yeah, that was a little fumbly. The money that we're putting into capital improvement stabilization, 3-point-something million dollars, right?
Yes.
From free cash. So I'm wondering if there's an opportunity to decrease that amount into capital improvement and take, 30, 40, 50 grand, whatever we need for youth services, and apply it there.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, so not for the program we're talking about here, but you're talking generally, I
Going
think?
back to the previous article.
Yeah.
And that's fine, I'm happy to answer the question.
Yeah.
So I think we could. The challenge with that is we would be funding what would be a recurring cost in a salary using free cash. And I think our concern would be how that's received by bond rating agencies, the Department of Revenue and others.
Yep.
So,
We'll end up falling short eventually, yep.
yeah.
I get it. Thank you.
So on Article 15, appropriation of funds for substance abuse treatment, mitigation, and prevention. Mrs. Fillmore.
I'm a little confused. Mr. Wallner just said, take that money and put it toward the youth service director. We can't do that. This is for the drug abuse program. We can't take money from this program, a substance abuse treatment program, to pay somebody. And I mean, we do need a youth director, but we can't take that money and put it toward the youth director. I mean, how can you say that as a select person? How can you say, take the money from the drug abuse and put it toward the youth service?
There may be a correlation between the job description, the performance of their duties, which may qualify, and again, it was a qualified answer here, it may qualify where you may be able to take some of this money and appropriate it towards that.
Some of the $12,000.
But the better link, for sure, is the position which is going to be, the grant money's expiring next fiscal year that we've had for 10 years.
Right, but
That
again,
one does fit.
I'm saying drug abuse, the substance abuse, and it's not just kids, it's full-grown adults that have massive issues with drug abuse. You can't say, I'm going to take that money and put it toward the youth director. We need a youth director, yes, but we can't take the money from the treatment for drugs. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I don't know how you can do that if you're voting to appropriate funds for substance abuse treatment, mitigation, and prevention, how you can put it toward the salary of the youth director. That's my
Mr.
only
Gilberto.
question.
So I think two members of the board offered informational type questions. I didn't hear or request to directly take action under this article on those. I think it was more a question, and to be clear, I think the better use, the more defensible use of substance abuse funds would be tied to the youth substance abuse coordinator. But I do have to say that depending upon the duties in a job description for youth services, I don't want to say that couldn't be done, but none of that is being proposed right now.
Then that article would have to be rewritten if you wanted to.
And it's not being
It's not going to be
proposed.
rewritten. That was more thinking forward by Mr. Massey and
Yeah.
Mr. Wallner in relation to budgetary for the spring. So they were just posing a question, correct me if I'm wrong, looking forward to the budgetary discussion.
But I do think we just got a cue that maybe that's not a rabbit that we should pull out of a particular hat. So, no promises, but we'll keep that in mind.
But I mean, I don't know how somebody can sit there and say, put it toward the youth director. That to me is just asinine, pardon me.
I think it was intended for discussion and understanding, that's all. But I appreciate the comment, thank you.
Article 15, any further discussion on the article? Again, the board already voted to recommend it. Any further discussion, anybody online?
Not seeing any.
Nothing, okay. Article 16, appropriate funds for continued facilities planning. Mr. Gilberto.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, there is a lot in the next two articles, to be clear, and I just want everyone to understand that I appreciate that. And it may be difficult for us to get all to the same place in one sitting, in two sittings, or in a single town meeting.
123 cities, yeah.
So I want to just be clear that I understand that. And I don't want to focus too much on two articles at one point in time. But one article would be to request funding to continue plans for constructing a municipal facility, which could be a senior center, could be an intergenerational center, could be a replacement for the recreation maintenance building, could be any municipal building for that matter. And the select board only recently, in the first meeting of September, this month, received a report of the Facilities Master Plan Committee, and I believe the chair of that committee, Ms. Hurlbut, is on the call. She was on the call. So they received the report. Some of you were here or heard it and have seen the report as well. This was intended to provide an avenue, if we were ready as a community, to continue planning on any of the particular projects. But to be clear, since that presentation took place, this is the first discussion that's happening publicly about it. So I don't want anyone to be under the impression that decisions have been made, that we have a direction we're going in, that we're doing one thing and not doing another. That's not the purpose here. This is simply, to be honest, primarily to respond to feedback we heard over the summer from advocates on behalf of the Senior Center and the Department of Elder Services to provide avenues towards a future with perhaps a more appropriate facility. So this first article would be an avenue to provide funding for continued planning. And a scenario I've put on paper here would be $150,000 to continue planning for either an intergenerational or a senior center for the community. And so this would be work that would be done furthering a design based on what we already know we needed for square footage, and working on a site, because that is an obstacle right now in terms of a facility. But this would allow us to continue that. To be clear, that is a multi-year planning process, most likely, at best. And I don't say that to sugarcoat it, but that's the reason the next article exists, which is also an expensive article that requires planning, but might get us to senior or intergenerational center faster than planning to construct something. So myself and the professional staff, many of whom, or all of whom who have been involved in these conversations are in the room here tonight, put these two articles on there as a means to start a discussion. We're not looking to force a solution on anybody. We just want to provide an understanding of some of the things that could be considered for the community moving forward. And we fully recognize that it just might be too much to do in one sitting, 4 weeks or less, 3 weeks, after we heard the report of the Facilities Master Plan Committee. So,
But that being said, we also don't want to wait until June to get some funding to start whatever it's going to be. So again, from a timing standpoint, we don't have any specific direction other than you want us to start looking at these things, provide us with the funds now, so that once it's determined what it's going to be, they can start it sooner rather than later, start the work. So again, as far as the specifics of whatever it's going to be, that's yet to be determined. But the way the calendar runs between our town meetings, June and October, doesn't provide much of any time in between to get things moving and get things going. We just got the report from the Facilities Master Plan Committee. We had the advocates who were in here back in July. It's not falling on deaf ears. So it's an opportunity for town meeting to determine if they want to provide some funding for us to take a look at whatever the projects are going to be and what the opportunities might be or what the options are going to be, rather than waiting till June to start doing something. That's Mr. Gilbert.
I'll make a suggestion. We have a presentation that's been put together by myself, the Director of Public Services, the Director of Elder Services, and the Finance Director as well, that sort of presents some information that relates to both articles. And I don't know if it might be helpful to just go through that to at least start the discussion, and if we determine we can conclude it.
Why don't we have that presentation, and then I'm sure there's still going to be the questions that people have already, and probably some more. So, Mr. Studo?
So, before we see those, because I already haven't seen it yet, I kind of know already where it's going. I do think it is not too early, because what I heard is that this is something that's very important. And I think that, again, if you remember what I said, I believe it was the August meeting, that we always get this close, and then everybody turns into T-Rex. And I just got here in 2017, so I haven't T-Rexed that much. So I think it is important for this to be presented, and we should push, and everyone should tell their friends, because then at least we will know if people actually want this or if it's just a lot of this. Because if this is the bare minimum just to get that going and plan, if people vote that down, and then we take a look who's in the room, then at least come our first meeting in October, you come in here and tell me, select board doesn't want to do anything for the seniors, we're going to rewind the tape. So I think it's important that we take this, no matter what numbers, and these are going to be some big numbers. I think we take it to the meeting. I think it's important to vote, and we either have our answer that people are willing to do it, right? Or they're not. And if they're not, then you know what? Then it is what it is. But I do, before you even presented, Mr. O'Leary, and to my board and to everyone here, I support that these articles are on, because I think it's important. And the numbers are big, and hey, what do they, hold on, put up or shut up, right? Isn't that the saying? It'll be really easy. And then we can call it a day, because I haven't been here as long as a lot of people in this room, but it seems that this has come up a good amount, and every time it's come up, all of a sudden, some of the voices that wanted the most just happen to have something in Wilmington that night. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to reiterate what Mr. Studo was saying, as well as Mr. Gilberto. I think it is very important. I am in full support of this article. I think at first we had about 30 to 40 to 50 or so grand shown as a rough
50.
draft initial estimate, and I was in full support of it then. In my mind, I said probably not enough to get us too far. This is way more accurate. This is the right number that we want. This is a direct response, as the liaison to the facilities master plan, this is a direct response to urgency requested by the community. This is a direct response to, when that facility is ready, we're going to have something to grab to hit the ground running. We're not going to be like in December or January saying, oh, we got to wait 4 more months. Time is money in construction. Having this money allocated and separated for us to be able to grab and continue is very important. And in my understanding, and I think this board's understanding, is that there's a lot of community support of this idea, whether intergenerational or senior, it doesn't matter, but this money will help us figure out what we want. This board will have to decide eventually what road, but I think having this money is so critical to be able to keep progress moving. Thank you.
Do we want to see the presentation? I'll read it something quick, or do you want to see the presentation
It's going to
first?
be really quick.
Okay.
Yep, really quick, thank you. When they make the presentation, and I would assume, it says this article would authorize funding for continued planning for the construction, et cetera, et cetera. When they make the presentation, I would assume they would tell us the continued planning is not necessarily who we've been using, what we've been using, but to start X amount of money, which it's hard to tell how much money we need to go through this. So I don't want to just throw out a number to get through the next 2 weeks. I'd like to have a number that is going to be realistic for what it would cost to hire a company now to look into all this planning and construction and not necessarily use who we had used in the past. So we're starting new. That's all I'd like to make sure that's very clear what we discussed tonight.
I agree. Thank you, Mrs. Moore.
So, who are we looking for? Kim?
I'll take us through the presentation, and there are plenty of folks who can help answer questions as they come up. All right. And that should be visible to anybody who's watching on Zoom, and I think NORCAM's able to broadcast it as well, right? Thank you. So we've talked a lot about the needs for the senior center growing. We talked about that during the presentation of the master plan report, but we also talked about it in July when a number of folks who are here tonight were with us at a select board meeting. We have a one-room senior center serving almost 5,000 residents, age 60 plus. We've identified spaces and support, and we're making it work using satellite locations to the extent possible. We've run into issues with that, as you know, over the course of this past summer. Some of the spaces are not usable 12 months a year, and doing so puts quite a stress on the staff as well. So the idea is looking at a single dedicated location that would have multiple rooms rather than a single room, with classes, meals, and staff and resources all in one place year-round. It would be air-conditioned and large enough for all to participate in activities together. wheelchair access to the building entrance and restroom, privacy for meetings with staff, providers, or sensitive needs such as fuel assistance or medical needs, doors to separate different groups that are meeting at the same time, visitor parking and waiting area that's available during classes, and less time or no time spent driving between locations, more time spent in providing direct programming. All right. I miss anything? All right. So the reason I suggested talking about both of these articles together is really encapsulated on this slide. And it talks about cost. And what it doesn't talk about is time. So with regard to the options, we received a report that talked about a 15,000 square foot senior center for roughly $15 million in cost, and a site that has not yet been identified with certainty, or a $30 million community center. Again, same challenge, not having a site that we've all gathered or acquiesced around and said, yeah, that's the spot for it. We've talked about some options, but don't have that identified. And I want to be clear, we put on here a cost projection that was intended to reflect what the impact would be if we needed to pay for such a project with a debt exclusion. And to be clear, a debt exclusion is not the only way that a project like that could be funded. We have talked, you're all aware, of available funds. We've talked about a number of the funding sources tonight, including sale of town-owned land. We've talked about funding that's in and going to be transferred into the Capital Improvement Stabilization Fund. So those are certainly options for you look with the construction cost here. But if we were to make a decision that those funds are needed for other projects, including the fire station reconstruction project that's currently been designed and is being further evaluated, for example, the impact on the taxpayer would be, for the smaller option of just a senior center, $171 per year for the average single-family home, and for the larger building, $342 per year for again, for the intergenerational center on the average single-family home here in town. Again, those funds could be offset by some of the funding sources that we talked about earlier, such as sale of town-owned land, and or some of the funds in Capital Improvement Stabilization Fund, but that would be at the detriment of other projects, including the fire station project that is well under design at this point. The third option is a little bit trickier for us, and this would be intended to more quickly come up with a plan where we would be renting space. And so we would do that under the procurement law. The state would have us looking to issue a request for proposals, and we do believe there's at least one, if not more, location here in town that could suffice for a rental for such a center. Whether they would formally respond or not, you don't really know until you issue the request for proposals, but we know there's at least one place here in town that would be interested and could potentially house a facility of the size we're talking about here. And again, how do we know how big it needs to be? We did a multiple-year process trying to come up with a facilities master plan that told us what we needed based on what you and others provided for feedback. So when we look at that, that's a little trickier in terms of the funding. Because it's not really a capital investment. So using sale of town-owned land or Capital Improvement Stabilization Fund, if it were available, isn't really a valid use to pay for rent. Now, could we pay to improve somebody else's property with that money? Potentially, but we would be talking about improvements in a facility that we don't own. So we would, I'm sure, want to have some thought and discussion about that. If we look at renting based upon the square foot rate, this is the rent to rent the space, not to improve it to the extent it needs to be for our own use. So for example, if there was a space that was 30,000 square feet, it would need to be outfitted to some extent to meet the needs of what was described in the earlier slide to properly provide services. That's not included in this estimate on the far right-hand side. But looking at ranges of between $51 and $102 per year, not including the improvements to actually outfit the space the way we need it, just to rent, and again, that's a projection, and that's for the average single-family home valued at $855,000. So for some people it's more, for some people it's less. If we were to look at the full-blown community center or intergenerational center, as you've heard it referred to, that range goes up to $102 to $205 per year for the average single-family home. Again, with relatively little ability to offset it with the available funds that we've talked about. That option's on here because it might be faster for a facility that we don't necessarily have a spot formally identified for, but it does come with quite a bit of drawback. A, you cannot subsidize it with those available funds, as I've said a couple of times. And B, you don't own the facility for generations. You know, you're renting it. And again, for a term, 10 years, 25 years, whatever it might be. And then again, whatever investment either you're making to improve the facility through rent payments or through your own capital expenses into the building, they're not going to be the towns at the end. They're going to remain the property owners. So we put this on here not because we think it's the right direction for the town to go in, but because we wanted everyone in this room to have options to consider what path forward makes the most sense. This is a reference that you all have actually seen when we talked about the impact of projects on the tax bill if you were to fund them as an override or debt exclusion. And so you can actually go in and just put in the dollar amount each year for debt service and your house's value, and you figure it out. So that's just a link to that. We'll put that up online. And just these are some pictures that show what we're using for space right now, as well as the associated square footage. You see there we have the town hall gym, which is not air conditioned right now. It does, the class that's in there goes to the senior center, which does not accommodate the full class right now. The main room in Aldersgate, a fantastic community space that's been made available to us. But there are limitations in terms of the occupancy for the number of people having lunch, as well as the seasonal nature in which it needs to be used because it's not air conditioned. We also need to share it with the property's owner, the church. So we're using it to this extent it's available. The lounge, again, a fantastic space, but only accommodates really one small group at a time when we're trying to do, obviously, multiple things to serve multiple constituencies. Masonic Lodge, that was a new addition, I think, this current calendar year, Kim, is that right? Did it go to last year? Okay. So, again, a space that's available to be used, a fourth location, if you can count the town hall, that we're trying to maintain use of, which was great that it was made available to us. We did run into some issues with being able to use it because of some utility issues, but it does come with some challenges, but a great opportunity that was provided to us to make do with what we have.
Is it there? Do you have it?
I don't see that on here, Mr. DeNaro. What is it compared to? Is it larger than the gym, right?
No.
No? Okay. So less
space than the gym.
Less than 2,640 square feet, less than that.
Probably the size.
The third meeting house, this is the main room in the senior center, 1,184 square feet, used for small group exercises, veterans coffee, games, lunches of less than 60 people. The parking is very limited, as you all know. The topography is not great for the access as well, as you all know. The staff is also in there. There's only 2 enclosed offices. No lounge or waiting area that's available for visitors when there's a class going on. So as you all know, you walk in the door and you're in the middle of whatever's happening in there at that moment. So again, all of these challenges accounted for in the master plan report that you all, I think, have seen or heard about from the Facilities Master Plan Committee. So just some space suggestions if we were to talk about temporary lease spaces came from the Director of Public Services and from the Director of the Senior Center. Again, adequate parking close to the entrance, right, so that it's accessible. Fully accessible bathrooms. At least 4 offices to accommodate the staff who are all doing different things at different points in time, and at any one point might be doing something that requires some confidentiality. Reception area that could be staffed for either volunteers or a paid receptionist, which is not a position we have right now. And at least 3 community rooms to accommodate the existing programming that's taking place. It looks like the way you flagged it is basically to account for the gym, Aldersgate, and the lounge at Aldersgate. So again, this is from the Facilities Master Plan Committee, I believe, or is this created after the fact?
This is the current space that we're using
Okay.
now simultaneously around town. So it just gives you kind of the perception of everything under one roof, but those are the spaces that we're using on a daily basis sometimes to run simultaneous programs in separate locations.
In up to 4 locations, right? Yeah, that's
Right.
So again, and I know many of the people in the room know this and are familiar with it because you've traveled, back and forth between the places. So this is intended to sort of show the options and how they relate to each other. Through you, Mr. Chairman, I just want to ask if there's anything that the Director of Public Services would like to add. You're welcome to come forward if you'd like to, or the Director of Public Services. And then I'll go to the Chair of the Council on Aging as well.
I mean, I think at this point in time, it's not just a strain on the staff, it's also the impact on the residents attending programming. To travel to 4 different places in one day's period is sometimes challenging for folks. If they do drive, they may not want to continue their day at another stop. Also, there's barriers to do that. There are barriers for residents that don't drive, and it increases our demand of transportation. And we just aren't working as efficiently as possible. I think that's kind of the basis. If we had everything under one roof, all staff mostly would be available because people often call or walk in when we may be at a satellite location.
I think I'll just close by saying, and this may be too much opinion for me to be sharing, but I'm going to share it anyway. We are all doing a fantastic job with what we have. The staff is doing a fantastic job with the limited capacity that we have for personnel, the space. The public, seniors in particular, are making it work and are putting up with it and adjusting and being flexible to cancellations, to changes in location. We've tried to make space available here at the town hall to try to accommodate to the extent that we can. Everyone is doing their best. But I think it's clear that we can do better. And so these are options that provide us a way forward. They're both expensive. They're different approaches. They come with different timeframes and different problems. But I think they're structured this way because we've done all this work planning to build a facility, so you have an option to do that. If there's too many obstacles to that, you have an option to try to rent something as well. That's the way I would look at it. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Studo.
I also want to add why it's important to bring this, because we have to lead this horse to the water. And if it doesn't want to drink, there's other horses. And that's the other thing we need to know, because there's things just as important. One's imminent, the fire station, which is a big public safety need. So that's what we need to know, that if this is, if the vote for this fails, which I hope it does not, then I feel like, even though, like Mr. Massey said, we kind of prioritized it, we did the whole process, we tried, but then with a good conscience, you can move on and you can say we tried. Because there are other things that I don't think are as important as the senior center, but again, that's for the voters to determine, and we need to have an answer because it will make life easier for the administration and everybody working. If they know, if they get a clear message that this is what you got to work with now, it is what it is, and they'll do their best and keep going. Right, but they need to know that too, because right now it's in limbo of, are we going to keep trying to stretch this dollar? And depending on how the vote goes next week, maybe it's like there's some hope that this is temporary and we just have to make do. So I just wanted to state that as well, that we've made it a priority enough where this will, I feel like, guide future select boards and this one on what to prioritize next. So again, to reiterate that I think these 2 articles on it are great for multiple purposes. Thank you.
Ms. Mullen.
Thank you. I don't think I heard the answer if we're going to continue going with the same company we've gone through and get a number from them, or is it something we're going to start? like, when we looked at 17, it was pretty clear that, okay, you're looking for X amount of money, and in 2 weeks, nobody's really heard about this, so what's the number we're going to use to hire a company to go look around at all different locations and come back to the seniors and say, this is what we've got for a number, this is what it's going to cost, and to get all that information in 2 weeks to ask people to vote on it. If we start to tie it back into one, I'm asking where are we getting the information, considering a lot of us have been on these committees discussing it for X amount of years. And we did talk about the intergenerational too. What company where it says continue planning on this and appropriate transfer of money from whatever, who's the company that we're using to do it? We're going out to get a new company that has been doing the work for us, a new the company that's been planning and giving us information for 7 or 8 years. Are we going out to bid for another person to answer that, the bid?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, thank you. So I think that's a decision for the community to make, whether that's through the select board, whether it's through the facilities master plan committee, whether it's through some other entity. We have the ability to continue working with the existing vendor who's helped with the facilities master plan if we wanted to, but that was established, I think, 7 years ago. And so, you know, while we have very useful information, we may look to continue with them, but we may look to go elsewhere for work. And that's something that we could also do through the required procurement process. And I hate to sound like a bureaucrat, but that's part of my job. We have to advertise and go through a process to identify who the right designer is for us. Now, we could do that and we could end up back at the same designer, or we could do that and we could end up at another designer. Everyone gets a fair shot, and it gets to be the community's decision for doing that. So I think we probably would be doing the latter, going through that process and figuring out who we want to work with. This started as a $50,000 number, and that was a really sort of back of the envelope trial balloon number. How serious is the community about going through planning to continue and move forward building something? I did talk with HKT Architects, who we've been working with, and I said, what do you think? And they immediately said it's too low. $50,000 is not going to get you anywhere. Mr. Massey also mentioned that earlier too. I talked about trying to get this process moving forward and also being cognizant of time, because we do have a town meeting that will again come up in June. So if we found ourselves underfunded and we're making progress and we want to continue making progress, we could ask for more money in June if we needed to. But the number that I was provided, you know, for either senior or intergenerational center to move forward with more design work and looking at sites, right, including geotechnical work on sites, meaning can the building be built on the site? $150,000 was what came forward. Happy to try to better offset that. I feel a little more comfortable hearing from Mr. Massey, who works in the field, that that number at least gets us, you know, moving forward in an appropriate way. Could the town be asked to approve funding for final design? I suppose it could, but we don't know where the building's going, so that's hard to do. Could it be asked to fund everything through construction? It certainly could, but again, we don't really have a cost estimate on that. We have a very initial number based on square footage, not a design. So I think it's probably early to ask for that much funding. So again.
Right, it seems like we're not near that, but I thought originally when they said number 17, that was to hire somebody, I thought, which was to look for areas in town that possibly you could rent for a year to get the seniors going and have a place for them to be at for a year, possibly two, and then take the other section, which is looking at facilities planning, where we've been looking at it for 8 years and really have come up with something that was not really one particular group looking at this whole thing. I think you do need to start over again with that. I think to pretend to throw out some money to say we can do it for this amount of money and then come back to the taxpayers later and said, I thought you said we could do this or that, is not fair to them and fair to what we expect. But the part for the money to go to procure some lease space for the elders and look at it, what it would cost. If you were going to hire some group, real estate group, to look at the different various places in town and see if we can cut a deal with them to give them a place to go.
So through you, Mr.
And are
Chairman.
we going to that same company? I think that we should definitely have some definite discussion on a meeting that we could speak at. That is
So-
more than just 15 minutes on it.
In terms of the concept of renting space, my thinking was a 5 to 10 year term. Because it's a lot of effort to put in for what would be, in my opinion, a facility that would be improved to actually do what we said we need, rather than us trying to fit into some facility that maybe isn't perfect. So that was my vision. And again, that's more a backup if we just aren't ready to commit to a building project, which I think I've already heard quite a bit of support for. So that was my thinking. Not to say we couldn't do both. We certainly could. I do think it becomes, you end up in a spot where you may end, just when you're getting your spot built out by a third party, you're ready to break ground on a new building. So, then
How about a rent to buy?
it's certainly possible. My worry is that the facilities that are large enough that we know of are probably not going to be for sale to us. There's 2 sites that, out of respect for the folks that have been identified or come forward as potential respondents. I don't think in either scenario we are necessarily going to be able or willing to buy the space. So that's not to say it couldn't be done, but it certainly could be. That's a decision for the community, though.
And again, we're talking about both articles simultaneously here a little bit. We have what's been pointed out, some immediate needs and challenges as far as programming going forward. Even if the community had an appetite for building a new facility, you're talking 5 years away. Are we going to be satisfied maintaining the status quo for 5 years, or are we going to be looking at a combination of the two?
Well, I guess I'm saying, yeah.
Pardon me?
I guess I'm saying if this is the first time we've talked about it publicly at a meeting 2 weeks before the town meeting.
1 week, yeah.
1 week before the town meeting, it's pretty short to get everything together to be able to make a presentation to really say what we want. So I think that to pretend to go ahead with it, we're asking the public for something we don't even know and can't explain the whole thing. Do I think the seniors need a place? Yes, I'd rather rent transportation and buses and make a deal with Wilmington and say, can we go there and have people drive all these people instead of going to the town meeting, share it with Wilmington. Things like that. I'm just not saying to do it now, but we want our own place, we know that, but I'm saying to pretend that we know what to ask for money when after 8 years, we're no closer to an intergenerational center or a senior center than we were 8 years ago. Thank you.
But again, what we're looking to do here is get a pulse for the community as to how do we want to address the current situation in the short term and the long term. So when people look at the numbers and say, we're talking $300,000 to $500,000 or $600,000 a year to rent a spot, do you want to do that temporarily now and move people, or do we want to go ahead with trying to find a location for a new facility, which is still going to be 5 years away before you walk in and have a turnkey operation. So, yeah, we have a lot of decisions to make in a short period of time. And again, maybe this isn't the time to do it. Maybe they push the pause, town meeting pushes the pause button. But this is an opportunity to gauge the sense of the community now. You're on.
Nancy Wolf, 4 Sandsburg Lane. How are you guys?
Good.
So I don't know if we're one of the 2 people that you spoke to about renting to buy the Masonic Lodge. And I don't know if that lot is big enough to actually contemplate what you're actually intending to build. That's my first question. Do you know?
You were not.
Yes. Okay. So I don't know if that lot is big enough. All right. Certainly that is something, I think once you get to the request for proposal portion, and because I think it's premature right now, to possibly have us put in a bid to at least contemplate, and I will preface this for anybody who's listening who is a Mason, I am not. I don't have any decision-making in this process, but I do have the contact, and I think there would be some interest in potentially contemplating putting a bid into doing that. So, just for what it's worth, I at least want to make sure that we weren't one of the two. And if there is a rent-to-own opportunity, that lot is very large, it's very underutilized. You know, certainly at the RFP process, we'd love to engage at that point, or if not prior to that, to have that conversation with the people who are actually able to make that decision. I'm going to preface that.
Mr. Gilberto.
Just, I think the existing building is not large enough in terms
Correct.
of square footage.
Correct, absolutely, 100%.
Are you talking about a possibility of the town acquiring the property?
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Can I just get some clarification? Is the dollar figure 150,000 for Article 16?
Yes. Article 16, $150,000 to continue a planning effort, looking to advance a design, not a final design, but advance a design and look at sites to put that design on. That's Article 16. Article 17, to be clear, is a much more nominal number, $15,000 to $30,000 to get some on-call services that we may or may not even need to help us go through issuing a request for proposal. It's a much smaller number.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Massey.
Just wanted to address one of the public comments. This is only my opinion, but sort of like the fire station building committee, where it derives from the facilities master plan. My opinion, and I've brought this forward to the board in public, is that I think that the architect that worked on that project has completed their charge. I'll say that. They were hired to do a task. They have finished that task. It is up to the select board to, in my opinion, close the facilities master plan committee. The fire station one, fire station was a part of the facilities master plan. We plucked that out and we made it its own committee. I think whatever direction we go, intergenerational, community, senior center, doesn't matter. I think that's going to need its own, because it's such a big project, it can't be in the facilities master plan. It really needs to be its own studied project. My thought, similar to the fire station building committee, is we went out and we interviewed 4 different architects. We had 7 different firms at first. We narrowed them down to 4. We interviewed them. We did it the right way. And I would, I'm with you, Ms. Mullen. I think closing that out and moving on to a new firm, which we have done, like the fire station building committee, is important. Thank you.
Mrs. Fillmore.
Yes, just in regards to the senior center, well, intergenerational would be enticing to the public, the whole town, because you're working with the kids and you're working with the seniors. But in regards to the senior center right now, something has to be done. What did we have, 5,000 seniors in town? Was that the number? Okay. I mean, and we only have probably a third of that that can attend, because we don't have the facilities. We need something now to accommodate all the seniors. I mean, there's people sitting at home that want to come, but because they can't get up into the parking lot, or they can park down at the, the common down there where the windmill is, but they have to walk across the street and walk up the hill, and that's pretty difficult for some of these people. We need something that can accommodate all the seniors in this town. Now, and later on, we can go for an intergenerational that will, like I said, entice the whole town. You've got the kids, you've got the adults. But right now, we have to work on the seniors.
So on Article, we'll do Article 16. Any further comments or input?
No.
Hearing none, okay. Article 17, again, is the procurement of services for lease space for elder services in the senior center. Mr. Massey.
Mr. Chairman, is there an opportunity for us to go back to Article 16 for a second?
Sure.
I believe it says it's raise and appropriate, right? New taxes?
The funding source for Article 16?
Yes.
Or appropriate
No.
budget.
No, we're proposing to fund that within the tax levy. It would not be a tax increase. For the further evaluation, $150,000. The construction project itself is a different discussion.
Well, with the 150K is within the existing tax levy?
It'd be funded by free cash, so yes.
Okay, right.
Okay, never mind. Thank you.
And so would Article 17, to be clear, too. It's a much smaller number.
Thank you.
All right, so again, Article 16, any more? No? Article 17, any other comments, input? Right. Now, as far as the board, do we want to make a recommendation on the $150,000 tonight? Or do we want to do it Monday night? You've had your presentation.
I'm ready.
You're ready. You're ready. All right. Mrs. Moore?
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend Article 16, appropriate funds for continued facilities planning.
Second?
And we get $150,000
$150,000 in free cash.
in free cash, okay. All right, a motion by Mrs. Barnes, second by Mr. Massey. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Unanimous. Article 17. We go to the 30,000?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
Article $30,000, yes.
All right, Article 17.
If we're going to do that.
Well, again, and board members, we can discuss whether we want to do these two things simultaneously, or we want to move forward on one, wait on the other.
I think we have to do them simultaneously.
I don't disagree.
The 30 grand, that's only for procurement of someone to help us out with getting space?
Right, and we probably would
Oh,
not
not for
necessarily...
actually just renting the space?
Not renting the space. This is just, how much is it going to cost, do the evaluation, what do we think, what's the build-out going to be, that sort of thing. But
Why can't, can we manage that process ourselves and just manage the money and pay vendors that are available?
we don't have to spend the whole thing. Go ahead, Mr. Gilbert.
We probably can do much of it in-house, but I don't want to I don't want to undercut or underfund the effort and what might be needed to help it,
Okay.
to keep it moving.
Okay.
And I also think it's helpful for town meeting to weigh in, to approve as well.
And again, if it isn't all utilized, a year later, it'll be converted back to free cash and become available later on.
Thank you.
Maybe, Mr. Chairman, I think it's great that we want to move forward with both. These are both big initiatives, even the rental effort, so we're going to have to, I think, talk even after the fact about how we're going to set this up. There's a lot to be figured out, in my opinion. Not that we can't walk and chew gum at the same time, but these are two very big initiatives, obviously, for the community, so I do think a future discussion is going to need to happen.
Yes, a future discussion with this board as to how we're going to proceed with both projects. And again, there wouldn't necessarily be with the same groups of people. You know, there'll be some overlap with professional staff, I think, but as far as people who are willing to step forward and assist with the process, again, it wouldn't be the Facilities Master Plan Committee, at least in my estimation, but this is for a future discussion for the board. It'd be separate committees to advocate and research proposals. But again, that's for us to decide in the not too distant future, depending upon the actions of town meeting, October 6th. All right. So on the motion for Article 17, $30,000.
Just read it.
Sorry.
You all set? We're just ready to make our recommendations, but this is on Article 17?
Oh, so Article 17? Okay.
This is on 17, not 16.
17, sure. Yep.
Sorry.
17.
That's just for the senior center to look for a location and not to necessarily use the present company we had before. Is that correct? We would put it out to bid for 150?
This is separate.
Probably separate,
And
yeah.
get a
But
separate, so we'd be looking for a new vendor.
Well, I think she's talking about Article 16.
That's Article
I'm talking about
16.
17.
Article 16, we voted to recommend the $150,000. We're also talking about, at a future meeting, creating another committee to move forward with it, and then the determination of services will be recommended
So
through
on
that
the
process.
16, you're looking for 150,000, then is it the same vendor, and is it just the senior center?
We don't have a vendor as of yet. We have the vendor that's available to us. If we decide to avail ourselves of that, that'll be determined later. We may very well choose to go somewhere
It
else.
needs to be determined by town meeting.
that 200 grand that we got for the fire station, we were able to determine, we're gonna go back out to get design firm. We can either choose that existing firm or not. We chose not to. Depends who is in the interview crew or,
But on the 150, we're only talking about the senior center part of it. It's under 16?
Yes.
We're talking about possibly intergenerational.
Yeah.
Thank you.
If the 150,000 would apply for either scenario, so if the board wants to make a determination of one versus the other, or to evaluate the two together, I guess we could do that as well. But if we're going to be asked at a town meeting, we should be prepared to answer.
Town meeting, you know what you're asking for.
But,
I'll explain.
hold on. One thing I can say though, but, Ms. Muller, I understand your question, but it's an no one can give you an answer. Because if we say in the affirmative, it will be another vendor, but through the RFP process, this current vendor comes in at the best, we can't just ignore it, because
no, design firms aren't by price.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
By
I'm
qualification,
just saying,
so,
yeah.
you can't, you're not going to
You're
take that money and just continue with that same person to go through the same process we can.
well, it seems like it's a new break.
To be
I'm
determined.
not the chair.
To be determined.
To be
You should
determined.
know some of these questions.
That's what the 150,000 is for.
Correct, to be determined.
Not a lot of money.
Mr. Gilbert.
To be clear, town meeting doesn't determine who the vendor is that does the work.
No, I
So,
understand that. No, no.
and in fact, we have to follow a procurement process that's qualification based. So it's not like low bid, it's whoever we determine to be
No, I
most
understand. I'm just saying
qualified.
150,000 is not going to give you all the things that we've been talking about for all these years to see which way we want to go. My concern is we take care of the senior center people right away and come up with some plan for it.
So that,
And I don't know that we're going to be able to have that information in 2 weeks. We could call a special committee, a special meeting, anytime we want to go to the town to ask to pass this.
But that's not necessarily the plan, but it could be. Right. Michael, what were you going to say?
what I do want to seek some clarification on is we recommended the article. Do we intend to ask town meeting with the understanding that we're looking to design and site a senior center only, or an intergenerational center, or we're leaving that open?
I think you leave it open, and I think actually it's important. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, to jump in, but as the liaison, I think it's important. I think the committee itself isn't entirely complete yet either. I know we need to make a I would suggest maybe the facilities master plan make a recommendation to the select board on which route we want to go. I think that vote's probably going to be close, but I think it's a good discussion. But I think for now, having that money to be, depending on which way you want to keep it a little bit broad.
And that's fine. I just, in the event that I think people are going to want to know. So if we're just saying we're leaving those options on the table, then that's fine. I think that, and again, talking with, again, one architect at this point, as we're coming up to this, we look like we could look at both options with that dollar amount, so.
Yep. And then, as far as so we've already recommended the $150,000, so we're good on that. The question comes on the additional $30,000 to look at getting assistance in procuring rental space. And again, whether it be immediately for the short term or the long term. And again, to me, it's probably a 5-year time period. And the board has to make some sort of determination as to whether or not there appears to be a significant need to address now rather than waiting. And then once we get a determination as to a cost for a new facility and the timeline associated with that, will determine whether we move forward with that or we continue on. Recognizing, and the public needs to recognize, that you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in rental in order to get it all under one roof.
Oh, wow.
So,
Where'd that number come from?
it's up on
To rent?
Have to agree.
the rent.
No, Article 17 actually never got brought up. We
It was
closed
on the
No, just the
No, it was
presentation.
on
the presentation. It was on the
Not to
presentation.
actually do it, just the presentation.
But the presentation
It's
is
saying what the impact could be.
the impact was going to be. Do we want to move forward and explore that in short order? Put it under one roof, recognizing that it's still going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars in rental costs a year to move this facility and maintain it somewhere else under one roof.
So it's basically allocating 15 to 30,000 in order to see if it's feasible. to bring it forward.
And
To
give them
see
the
if
options.
town will let it.
And do we want to spend the money to do it?
Yes.
Take a look at it, find out what the real cost is going to be.
Doesn't look good.
Up to 6 figures to rent.
Yeah. We
That's
need
wild.
options. We need options.
That's wild.
Yeah, there's
Right,
no,
it's wild, but again, we have a problem right now where we need to,
I totally get
yeah,
it.
so
Totally
let's,
get
you
it.
know, let's make a determination whether or not we want to solve the problem. Short term,
Where
we're
we
still
what?
going to need some
Flood
other
zone?
facility, or you're going to say, no, we're not going to rent any space, you're going to suffer where you are for the next
Get on
5
my
years.
computer.
Until we figure out where we're going to put this other thing, and how much it's going to cost.
No, I don't need you,
what
my
to do.
contacts in.
So,
Any thought of cleaning up, was there any thought to the Damon Tavern thing about cleaning it up and allowing some space, or did that not work out?
I don't know what happened. Kim, can you comment on that?
At this time, we are at capacity managing the sites we currently have. They're all working well for us in different ways. And I can't see that we could accommodate anything more at that space at this time.
So the second question would be is if you had more staff to manage the Damon area, would that potentially be some relief?
It's still an inefficient way to provide day-to-day operations. Many people come into the senior center with something that needs to be addressed right away, or you know, they need to meet with one of us. It's not just all programs, it's, you know, people coming in with issues with finances, fuel assistance needs, with a clinical case manager that specializes in people that have chronic and complex behavioral and medical needs.
But that's gonna happen wherever you are. The question is on the Damon Tavern. There's already an elevator there. There's already handicap spots. When I read over the whole facility master planning committee, Damon Tavern is one of the buildings that came forward as being really in good shape for potential use. And so, I mean, if what you're saying is, you know, I need staff there in order to run that facility, that would be a reasonable request. But to have that facility not being used, if it could be used to help provide some relief, you know, I'd be encouraging us to take a hard look at that.
I think it's just fragmented. You know, right now we're at capacity managing what we have. To have another satellite location, it's just difficult for all moving pieces as far as transportation, and just having people move around all day.
Mr. Gilberto.
I guess I'll add that, and I think I speak on behalf of the professional staff that was involved in putting this information together. The thinking with renting space was the entire senior center in some space that is unlikely to be a space it's in right now, or any one of the spaces, all together for, again, and I know this is hard to hear, a period of 5 to 10 years. So, you know, that's the way I was looking at this. If it could be shorter than that, fantastic. I worry about the cost being very high to outfit a place for that short period of time. But, you know, to be clear, the thinking was, we don't have a building right now that can accommodate us. Rent a space where we are moving everything, including what's in the third meeting house, to the site with better access, and more parking, et cetera. So that was the thing. That's not to say that we can't try to find some other alternative, but that was the thinking initially here. So, and that's where the cost came from. It's 15,000 square feet at $20 to $40 a square foot if you just do a senior center.
Yeah, I'm not arguing that's a really good idea, you know, to do that. I'm just wondering, even in between saying we're going to even do that and getting it done will probably take us at least a year to build it out and do everything else like that. So,
I'd love to respond to that, because I do think, to be clear, all of this stuff unfortunately does take time. And we're, you know, there's no time to start like the present, and we're ready to start now. But, you know, we would need to identify a space. There may need to be improvements made to that space before we can occupy it. So I'd love to tell you that we could, you know, go to town meeting, get the money, and rent the space tomorrow, but there is going to be some time that needs to go into it. And there's going to need to be some effort, too, meaning the community helping us decide, hey, is this the right spot, you know, for us? Is this where we want to go? And we may not have great options presented to us. You know, we have talked about, you know, could we expand beyond what we're doing? And I think the feeling amongst the staff and I is, at this point, if we're not going to just focus on building something, we're going to focus on renting something, that we rent a place for the whole operation. So that's the thinking.
I'm just trying to find you relief.
Yeah, no,
Tomorrow.
I appreciate that.
Tomorrow.
It's just that, you know, that area is not walkable. We already have people trying to park at the library, the Congregational Church. You know, the grassy area is not always accessible in bad weather. But it's not, there isn't even a crosswalk, and some people are limited with the mobility to go from place to place, so.
Okay.
Mrs. Fillmore.
And to say more staff, this is a team, they work together. They need one place for everybody to work together. You've got people taking Sue out of her office so that somebody else can go in and meet with a client, or you've got Kim coming out of her her office to get somebody else in. It's a group effort. You've got people coming in there, as Kim said, that are looking for all kinds of needs. And you can't just to say add another person, and where's that other person going to go? We're going to kick somebody out of their office to put them in there so that they can take up some...
It's called Damon Tavern.
But, please. We need something now, not tomorrow, not 10 years down the road. We need something now so that we can work, or they, not we, because I'm just a volunteer,
If you weren't
that they
listening,
can work with the people together.
in case you weren't listening, the goal of even getting a rental space for everybody could be in one space, could be a year to 2 years away. So
Yes.
that's not tomorrow.
It's
I'm
not-
trying to come up with something for tomorrow.
But to say add more staff.
Okay.
Where are we going to put the new staff?
So the question for the board is, if we're going to be recommending this article, it's with the understanding as to what's up there. And we're going to be recommending to the public, this is my take, that we're asking them to consider addressing the situation now by getting the senior center under one roof. Well, we're going to be looking at other options also, and that the potential costs are significant. You know, is that what we're looking to recommend? I say I'm fine with that, because again, this may be a solution that, from a cash flow standpoint, is the acceptable solution, as opposed to financing a new structure at twice the annual cost going forward, or a short term, meaning 5-year term, in order to get us to a different position to build a new facility.
So I think that to get close to the dual goal, it's going to have to be a combination. And if let's say we supercharge it and, you know, work quicker, and it still takes like a year if you find the perfect space. The other one, even if we got that money approved tomorrow, I mean, what's the build on that? How long? If everything went well, how long did it take to build 15,000 square feet? 2 years?
A year and a half.
Okay, but let's say that would be a 5-year process, but I think you can do both, okay? Because there's nowhere else, not in town, not unless private money comes around. It's the reality. And because there's so many requirements, it's not like tomorrow, I want to lease. It's not like tomorrow I want to lease a bigger apartment and I just go. There's 150,000 rules in municipal government before you can do anything. I mean, if we change pink color to red, I got to talk to 16 different people. So, you know, that's just the reality I've learned. I learned it last year, like looking at it intimately as chair. So, I support this because I think it will give the decision that here's your short term. By short term, we mean within a year. And here's your long term. But again, it gets back to what I was saying an hour ago when we started talking about this, that I think the town needs to be presented with all these numbers to show what the real costs are, because if they're not going to be funded, there's other priorities that need to be started to begin talked about. And we'll know. Because if we can't get this through, just to at least give the community the numbers, I can tell you, we got no shot at getting 15 million approved. Like if we can't get the community to pony up 150 to get us this plan, and then 30 to get us a short-term solution, this presentation, let's just, you know, When's leaf burning season open up? Because that's about it. So, I'm just being honest. I know it's like a brutal honesty thing, but that's how I look at it.
There we go.
Hi, I'm Valerie Schiavone. I'm also the current chair on the Council of Aging and was a part of the presentation in July. I appreciate this slide, but if we're going to present this at town meeting, it's going to get totally confused with the two articles. Because the two articles are talking right now about 150,000 and 30,000. This is something in the future. And maybe you need to put some sort of a time frame on it. But if people are getting presented this and the two articles, I think it's going to be totally overwhelming. And that's just my opinion.
So what would be your suggestion?
So you need to couch this presentation, reframe it in such a way that you're saying, in the future, these could be some numbers that we're talking about. And like these numbers are 2025. So if we're looking at renting space and you're saying like 5 to 10 year timeline, and then a build would be another couple of years after that, or an overlap.
Maybe simultaneous.
I just think it's going to be overwhelming for people to see both presentations, unless you're saying this is something we're talking about in the next couple of years.
Just a point of clarity, I'm sorry, Valerie. I believe these are 2036 construction numbers.
Is that?
The 15 million and the 30 million. There was a 2026, 2036, 2046 column.
Okay.
And we were trying to grab the 2036 because we're not building in 2026.
Right.
So that is important.
But that doesn't
might
say
be
that
important
on
to
the
say
slide.
that. Yep.
Mr. Arnold, if I can add, the reason we're being like this is because we learned the lesson. I think Ms. Mullen said, what could it cost? If we don't put this up, I will guarantee you, and actually I can name them verbatim, the 5 people who are going to get up and say we're hiding the slide.
Okay. No, I totally appreciate
And
being
almost like
upfront.
clockwork, I would bet a lot that will happen. And that's why I know the administration's being this open, because again, the one good thing about going through the whole SWORD thing is we learned how to not do certain things. This right here, if we don't have this, the first question's gonna be, after we spend 150,000, how much do you think it would be? And then when they find out that the slide was here and it didn't exist next Monday.
But I think it needs to be presented in stages. Like right now, we're talking about 2 articles to front money, so we're moving this project forward, which needs to move forward. And then this is what we're talking about in the future. And if you could put in that these figures are based on 2036, then I think that would be helpful. Thank you.
So I think I hear what you're saying is that for Article 16, the build-out would be one slide to accompany that. And then on Article 17, the rental part would be the slide that would accompany that.
Yeah.
I flipped them.
Right?
Flipped them, yeah, I flipped them too.
Well, Article 16 is specifically for building out,
Okay.
And Article 17 is for going forward to get a rental space.
Yeah.
So if you divided the slides to match each one, it'd be much clearer for people.
I think so.
That's a very good suggestion.
Mrs. Messeri?
Angela Messeri, 11 Susan Drive, and I've never spoken up with you guys before. My mind works logically. Have you considered reversing and doing the rental article first and then the buyout article? It seems to me if you present renting a space first and say, this is what we want to do for the short term, and then the next article comes up to build.
Mr. Chairman,
I don't know. Makes sense to me.
if I may, Angela, hi, Nick
Yeah.
Massey. From my research of the town charter,
Yep.
any resident can get up at any time and ask to move things around in articles. If you get up there and say it, no one's saying no to you. But that is a fact. Well, if anyone would like to move things around.
But wouldn't now be the time to do it?
We can't.
You can't, because the warrant's already done? Okay. It just, My mind went logical.
No, it didn't.
The selectmen can do it at town meeting.
We're residents, too.
Yeah. You guys make more sense.
No, I don't see it's high.
That makes more sense.
Yeah, it's high. It's not.
Anyway,
I like it.
right.
Going back
So-
to that,
Yeah, so just back to Article 17, again, we can talk about ordering and what comes up in what order, and see if we can take one out of order or something like that, if we think that's, that would be more easy to understand. You know, to my board members, again, I think it's critical that we convey to the public that what we're looking for is a short-term solution, potentially short-term solution, or even a long-term solution from a rental standpoint, to meet the current needs of the senior center, and we need $30,000 to figure it all out, but inform the public that it's going to be hundreds of thousands of dollars a year out of the budget, somehow, some way, we're going to have to pay for it. And that doesn't include staffing or anything else, I'll build up. Is that what the path that we're looking to do? Are we looking to address the current concerns immediately? Or are we looking to kick it down the road until we get a decision on a new facility?
I honestly think we've been talking about this for like an hour and 20 minutes. I'm ready for the vote.
yeah, I think,
Okay, we haven't answered the question.
No, so again, just so that everybody's clear,
I think we should look at both. I think this is good,
okay?
because I think we're gonna need a short-term solution, because, again, I don't see a way around that.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Mrs. Warren?
I think the current situation is not tenable. We need a temporary, however short or long it is, solution until we can build something.
Mr.
I
Mullin?
agree, and I think splitting the slides up would help.
Oh, yeah, no,
With the
and again, we can
discussion.
handle that, we can
think
handle
that
that,
would
because
help.
I don't disagree. Yeah. Mr. Massey?
Just one recommendation to the Elder Services, Director of Public Services, is maybe if we're going to give up one of the spaces that we're renting, don't make it the Masonic Lodge, because obviously they're so nice to gift it to us that we want to make sure that that's the one that, if anything, we want to be able to hold on to, because it's free. So.
Whichever one works best till we move, that's all, but yeah, it's a good consideration. All right, so, on Article 17, is there any further discussion or input from the public? Look at them shaking their head, no, we're done, okay. Good. Recommendation
Yes.
from the board?
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend the town meeting appropriating funds to evaluate and/or procure leased space for elder services / senior center in the amount of $30,000 funded from free cash.
Second.
Good. Motion made and seconded. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Unanimous. Yes. And just, Town Administrator, we'll find a way, and I don't disagree. I think the rental should come before the construction of the article, so we can,
It can be moved as a 4/5 vote.
yeah, it's a 4/5 vote.
So if we want to, if the board wants to propose that, you know, when we get to that article, we certainly could, but it would be a 4/5
Oh,
vote.
and the other thing is we could take up the Article 16 first, then postpone any further consideration of the article until after Article 17, which is just a simple majority. So, there are ways around it. Good. Article 18. Thank you, everybody. Mr. Chairman.
We're gonna allow two more liquor stores?
This would be for town meeting to authorize the select board to allow for the conversion of wine and malt beverage license for on-premise consumption to be modified and become all alcoholic beverages licenses at that particular site, subject to the requirements under the general laws, including notice, publication, and public hearing on such a conversion. So again, this would not automatically convert licenses in this way. It would simply allow the select board, based on an application, to authorize this type of conversion. And again, it's limited to the particular site, and I believe the particular ownership as well.
That's right.
And the board voted 4-0 to recommend.
So again, the legislature provided this opportunity to local communities, but subject to town meeting approval or acceptance. So it's, we already voted to recommend it.
You did.
Yeah. So is there any input or any questions in relation to Article 18? Mr. Mackey?
So is that going to be
Kevin.
valued?
Kevin,
Kevin Mackey, 18 Adams Street. If you don't have a full liquor license now, that you've already paid for whatever you paid for it, if I don't have a full liquor license, and now I get one that doesn't cost me anything, is that going to devalue whoever has a liquor license right now?
It may, to the extent, and this is part of the reason the legislation passed, because, you know, it's an asset that, you know, we may charge $2,000 or $3,000 a year for a fee, but as far as that asset to a restaurant that has it, it could cost it its hundreds of thousands of dollars, its value or more. Same thing here. If there isn't a liquor license available and someone wants to close their business and sell their liquor license, transfer it to somebody else, yeah, that has an intrinsic value that this potentially may impact. But again, our concern should not necessarily be for private restaurant owners' value in a license that we issue, that they're peddling to someone else so we can get a $2,000 fee. Our concern should be for the local establishments that are here right now who may want to come before this board and say, you know what, our business is such that it's grown and the demands of our customer base saying that, you know, they'd like a full liquor license instead of beer or wine. It's not transferable to anybody else. It's not transferable to another location. It's with this vendor right now. How about, you know, allowing me to do that? It would just provide us an opportunity to do that for an established business. Mrs. Fillmore?
Is this in regards to Lucky Mart that wants the full liquor that you
No.
all discussed? Okay.
This is restaurant. This is pouring licenses, not retail.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure it's not to give Lucky Mart a full liquor license or the dollar store that's looking for a full liquor license. Yeah.
For $1?
For $1.25?
Yeah, I'll take it.
Well, I mean, that's what was discussed.
My guess is
so
their
it's
business
gonna
would.
go forward.
Anyway, any further discussion or questions regarding Article 18?
Oh, yeah.
No one online, right? Hearing none, we've already made the recommendation. Article 19, authorize the select board to acquire interest in land for a sidewalk at 239 North Street, which is right here, down the street.
So, as it reads, the article was proposed because there's a site plan approval, I believe, that I keep saying site plan, am I right on that, Danielle?
Yeah.
Thank you. Site plan approval that required a sidewalk be constructed. This would allow the town to acquire the sidewalk. I believe we are under the impression that the property owner wants to convey it to us so that they're not the owner of a private sidewalk that the public is walking across. The article includes standard language that refers to eminent domain, although it would not be our intention to suggest the board acquire the property in that fashion. We think that there's a clear path to an acquisition that's a friendly acquisition between the town and the property owner. And again, as you heard earlier, the idea is to eventually construct a sidewalk that would incorporate this and bring the sidewalk across the front of the town hall here and then also up to the intersection at Lowell Road.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, would we be installing that sidewalk, or would they? Just because I'm thinking if they own it, we should just let them build it.
I believe they're going to be constructing it, and then we would acquire it as constructed.
Okay.
So,
Mr. Chairman, just to let the community know a little bit more why I voted no on this. The words read that the town would vote to authorize the select board to acquire by gift, purchase, or eminent domain upon such terms and conditions as it seems appropriate, an interest or interests in land at 239 North Street, which is that entire property, for general municipal purposes, including without limitation for the construction of a public sidewalk. So, my understanding, the definition of a sidewalk, you really don't want to go into the definitions. It will bore you. but it can go from asphalt to concrete to 3.5 foot wide to 30 feet wide. So, yeah, in my opinion, I think Benevento has been a great taxpayer to the community for a long time. I think this article may put their land at risk. So I voted no. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments in relation to Article 19? Again, the board recommended it 3-1. Hearing none. Article 20. Danielle, I'm sorry, so late at night.
Can I put in my slides? They're really short.
You have more slides?
Oh, did you already explain the language? Oh, okay. I was just going to give a little more definition of what the language changes were. I can just quickly summarize. Just the Attorney General's office approved the floodplain bylaw that the town passed at January town meeting, but just had a few areas where things were worded that should have been that could have been better clarified. So they recommended we make these changes just so people are very clear on the language. The first item was we had language in there even prior to the January bylaw. We already had language in there that could have been construed as, including every zoning district in the town, meaning the entire town was in the floodplain. It's not, obviously. It was never the intent, and this language change would be intended to correct that. There was language in there previously that has a prohibition on any accessory structure intended for human habitation. We're not allowed to do a blanket prohibition on all accessory dwelling units, but they are subject to a special permit just like primary houses are, and this language would clarify that. And then the other two items were really housekeeping. One was a language change that it should have been either or. It referred to city or town. It should have been clarified, and as well as the exact language that referred to our flood insurance study. And then there was a renumbering issue.
What?
A renumbering issue,
renumbering.
yeah.
So,
If there are any questions that I can answer.
any questions?
Very excited.
Just curious, is this like, obviously wetlands and floodplain are very related. Are you allowed to just build an ADU in wetlands, or?
No.
Okay, I thought that's kind of what this was
No.
getting at. I'm like, well, you can build them anywhere.
No, there had previously been a complete blanket prohibition on any accessory structure that was intended for human habitation in the floodplain. But we aren't allowed to do that. But you can build a house in the floodplain. You just have to have it permitted, and you have to go through a process, and there are a lot of requirements that need to be met. So the same requirements need to be met for an accessory dwelling unit. We're just not allowed to, across the board, disallow them.
Thank you, Danielle.
You're welcome.
This is what's in the warrant. It was mailed to everybody's home, just to, you can see called out with the strike through and the bold, what's being deleted and added in this. And I believe that subsequent to the warrant being printed, the planning commission voted, I think 3-1 to recommend the article.
Yes, that's correct.
Any further discussion or input? Hearing none, that concludes the public hearing on the October 6th, 2025 warrant. And we appreciate everybody's interest, we appreciate your participation, we appreciate your listening. And with that, we have one more motion. Mrs. Mara.
Mr. Chairman, I move to adjourn.
Second.
Everybody second.
All four.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, unanimous. Thank you very much.